Chapter 871. No wonder when they stepped into the sealed grounds, they didn't see that protector and black-robed old man. Which space did the both of them go to? Follow me properly. There are many distorted spaces in the 3,000 spaces, and if you're swept into other spaces, your life might be in danger. DMO Xian held Yiqing Luo's slender waist tightly as he casually walked forward. Yiqing Luo raised her head suspiciously as she looked at the man with a serious expression. Was it really that scary, and he was still so casual? Could it be that he had come up with such a rotten idea to take advantage of her in broad daylight? If I want to do anything to you, do I need to think of an excuse? DMO Xian's slender fingers clasped Yiqing Luo's lower jaw as he lowered his head and covered her lips. A gentle aura enveloped her nostrils. Was he a roundworm in her heart? Why was it that DMO Xian could guess everything she was thinking about? Yiqing Luo's face flushed red from the kiss as she hammered his chest with both hands. Can you pay attention to the occasion? Didn't you say there are distorted spaces? Leaving her swollen pink lips, DMO Xian was like a cat who had successfully stolen a fish as he licked his lips contentedly, as though he wasn't satisfied yet. Then let's continue after we leave the sealed grounds. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red as she spat lightly. I can't be bothered to play with you. The dark forces have already entered the space for a long time, and if they find the correct sealed space first, that sealed item will be taken away by the dark forces. DMO Xian stopped there and didn't continue to tease Yiqing Luo. The current situation was indeed not suitable for flirting. DMO Xian seemed to be extremely familiar with the 3,000 spaces as he held Yiqing Luo's little hand as they shuttled through the 3,000 spaces. Along the way, they were unobstructed. They didn't meet any distorted space. Only, the deeper they went, the more Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that there was an extremely oppressive feeling which made her unable to breathe. She wanted to open her mouth to ask DMO Xian, but she saw DMO Xian's calm expression, but his eyes were extremely grave as he looked ahead as his handsome brows creased slightly. Apparently, after crossing countless spaces and entering deeper into the space, he was starting to find it strenuous. All her words were deflated. Yiqing Luo forcefully suppressed this extremely uncomfortable feeling as she quickened her pace. Although Yiqing Luo couldn't sense the existence of the 3,000 worlds, but she could clearly sense the strange power lingering around her. That force seemed to be attracting her, as if it was summoning her. Another summoning? Previously, she had been summoned by his profound jade heart. But now what was summoning him? This thought had just flashed in her mind when Yiqing Luo's footsteps suddenly halted. His eyes suddenly fixed on a certain place. And DMO Xian, who was leading the way calmly in front, also stopped his footsteps because of Yiqing Luo. Ah Xian, there's something here. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pointed towards a direction where the white mist was curling upwards. Just as she finished her words, the surrounding white fog, like a tornado, rapidly gathered in front of Yiqing Luo. Immediately after, under the white fog, it seemed as though a huge hole had been torn open as it opened its bloody mouth, trying to swallow Yiqing Luo in one mouthful. Little Luo, be careful. DMO Xian's long arm moved, and Yiqing Luo staggered a few steps backwards. Following that, she saw a purple-robed figure, like a celestial being or like a lightning, heading straight towards that hole which had been torn open. The purple robe fluttered as the golden edges of the sleeves rolled, looking extremely magnificent. DMO Xian raised a palm wind as he fiercely chopped towards that hole, only to see that hole which had been opened up instantly closed up. Chapter 872. White mist curled upwards as the surroundings turned into a vast expanse of whiteness. A black hole opened up behind Yiqing Luo's back, as though it was a space that swallowed all living things. Gradually, the gap widened, as though it could swallow Yiqing Luo entirely. Lil Luo. DMO Xian's expression turned gloomy and deep. His obsidian-like eyes were as black as a lake. This space, It actually had its own consciousness, attempting to swallow Yi Qing Luo, right? It wasn't that they were searching for the right sealed space. But this space, right from the start, its target was Yi Qing Luo. DMO, Xian's narrow peach blossom, eyes narrowed slightly. He knew that Yi Qing Luo would be the opportunity to find the sealed space. But he had not expected that the sealed space would have its own consciousness. Taking the initiative to find Yi Qing Luo, was it to avoid him? Yi Qing Luo apparently sensed the danger behind her. Without the slightest hesitation, he used his footwork. The moment that gap was torn open, her figure had already disappeared. In a blink of an eye, she appeared next to DMO Xian. She grabbed DMO Xian's sleeve as her slender brows knitted tightly. "Ah, Xian, what's going on?" "This is the sealed land that had been covered in dust for 1,000 years. DMO Xian's voice was calm, but the expression on his face revealed a grave expression. 1,000 years of seal. Only you." His voice paused, as though he realized that he had said something he shouldn't. The color in his eyes retracted slightly as he continued in a calm tone. "Only a special profound heart jade like yours can unlock it." Yi Qing Luo was stunned. Her slender fingers covered her heart. "My profound heart jade?" She naturally understood the uniqueness of her profound heart jade. She had not expected, other than raising her own cultivation speed, her profound heart jade could also unlock 1,000 years of seal. Did the people from the dark forces snatch her profound heart jade in order to undo this seal? But after the seal was unlocked, why did the 3,000 spaces in the sealed land become like this? The sealed land was unlocked by your profound heart jade. The dark forces must have done something, causing the energy released by the sealed land to sense that they weren't the owner of the profound heart jade. So there was a strange reaction. This led to the 3,000 spaces in the sealed land to search for the true owner of the profound heart jade, which is you. This was the space's own consciousness. The reason why he took the initiative to look for Yi Qing Luo. However, the only problem now was if Yi Qing Luo was swallowed by the space and entered the sealed space. He would be sealed outside the sealed space, unable to enter the true sealed area. If Yi Qing Luo were to face the dark forces alone, Yi Qing Luo, whose profound heart jade had yet to return back to her body, would definitely become a tool used by the dark forces. Yi Qing Luo also realized this problem. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to be a match for the two people from the Dark Organization. She clenched her fists and secretly vowed in her heart that after this matter was over, she would definitely take back her profound heart jade and fight to regain her dominance. Suddenly, her eyes flashed as her charming eyes swept past something, and the hand which was holding on to DMO Xian's sleeve suddenly gripped his arm tightly as she dodged to the side. Chain reaction. The other spaces are also affected. Bang! The place where the two of them were standing just now was struck by an electric current out of thin air, making a crackling sound. But in the blink of an eye, the electric current seemed to have melted into the air. The surroundings returned to the vast expanse of whiteness. Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian exchanged glances as their expressions sunk slightly. Chapter 873. Could it be that the 3,000 spaces were trying to separate the two of them? Hold on tight. DMO Xian's voice was steady, as though he wasn't affected by the collision of the 3,000 spaces. He faced the direction that Yi Qing Luo pointed at and raised his palm. A gush of vast, profound qi burst out from his body. His jet-black hair flew in the air, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. His purple robe was fluttering in the wind because of the surrounding space. The profound qi lingered in his palm, and the wanton qi swirled around his body, bringing with it a shocking momentum. His face was calm. The luster of the profound qi set off his peerless face. That was a kind of silence before a storm. It was so silent that it made one's heart flustered, but one did not know how to suppress this maddening feeling of panic. The strong wave also brushed past Yi Qing Luo's cheek. She held DMO Xian's arm, and slowly wrapped it around his sturdy waist. From his back, her hands tightly hugged his waist, barely able to stand firm. The entire sealed area trembled. Pa! A piercing sound cut through the air and exploded in her ears. Dmo Xian's long arm hooked and hugged Yiqing Luo's slender waist as he leaped up. The two of them suddenly bounced and turned into a streak of light. Facing the palm wind that he struck out, they rushed forward. Yiqing Luo was wrapped in Dmo Xian's arms, leaving no gap. She heard the sound of the raging storm. Yiqing Luo wanted to open her eyes, but her head was pressed down by the man's big palm. Vaguely, Yiqing Luo only had time to catch a glimpse of a gap. The sealed area had already transformed into a pitch-black sky, with not the slightest bit of other colors visible. A huge white disk in this dark space was extremely conspicuous. Sharp fangs, shiny white fur, it raised its head and howled. Yiqing Luo couldn't hear the howl, but she had an extremely strong feeling. That huge creature seemed to be shouting something. But Yiqing Luo only caught a glimpse of it and was covered by Dmo Xian's arm. Her delicate body was hugged even tighter. The strength in his waist made him feel pain, although it was just a glance. But Yiqing Luo was almost certain. That was a beast that looked like a tiger or a leopard. In other words, there were the beasts on the totems that covered the outer perimeter of the sealed land. Why did he find it so familiar? He felt as if he had seen this beast somewhere before. We're here. Just as Yiqing Luo was filled with doubts, she heard Dmo Xian's soft whisper. She felt that her feet were firmly planted on the ground. The arms around his waist also loosened a little. Yiqing Luo stuck her head out and surveyed the surroundings. The surroundings were no longer a vast expanse of white or pitch black. There was no so-called 3,000 space, and there was no familiar-looking beast. This was just a sealed palace hall. It was indeed worthy of being called a palace. The spacious palace hall was extremely bright. The surrounding pillars were all sparkling and translucent, as if they were inlaid with luminous pearls. They emitted a lustrous luster that illuminated the entire hall. The hall was so spacious that other than the pillars, there was nothing else. Therefore, Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo didn't enter the main hall. Instead, they stood at a corner outside the hall and just happened to be able to have a panoramic view of everything in the hall. The guardian and the black-robed old man stood in the middle of the hall, arguing about something. The old man's right arm had been slashed open, and blood was gushing out violently. His old face was filled with a helpless expression, but he couldn't resist the guardian's urgent urging, so he stretched out his hand again and wiped a handful of blood from his arm. His bloody hand quickly began to form a hand seal. Chapter 874. In a split second, the entire main hall started to shake, as though the entire space was about to collapse. A scarlet-strong airflow started to surge in the main hall. As though a large amount of fresh blood was splashed out, it looked extremely horrifying, making one's heart palpitate. Even Yiqing Luo had a numbing feeling on her scalp. The entire wall was emitting a bewitching red glow. It blended together with the blood print which had been struck on the wall. Are we going to fail again? Guardian Ying's tone was unable to conceal the anxiety. His palms were crossed as he kept hitting his palms with the back of his hand, pacing back and forth as his face was filled with impatience. How could we fail? Don't tell me there's something wrong with your operation. His words had just ended when the old man's last blood print, which had been struck on the wall, was rebounded by that scarlet airflow. A bam sound was heard, and the old man was sent flying by the blood print as he retreated backwards, crashing onto a pillar. With a wah, he spat out a large amount of blood. The old man's face was pale, apparently having lost too much blood as his breathing became heavier and heavier. He leaned against the pillar as he sat on the ground. His palm, which was filled with blood, covered his chest as he berated in an extremely displeased tone. Guardianing, I'm the most favored elder by his lord's side. If you don't believe me, you can leave now. Don't think too highly of yourself. How much profound Jadeheart's energy was needed to execute the forbidden art was something that Guardian Ing totally didn't understand. He had used his own blood time and time again to form the blood print, But the pain of the backlash was something that Guardian Ing wouldn't understand. It was a typical case of speaking without thinking. The two of them had different responsibilities, but their statuses were similar, so no one was lower than the other. Guardian Ing saw the old man getting angry and hurriedly took out a blood-replenishing medicinal pill from his chest as he respectfully passed it over. Elder Xiong, his lord is waiting for us to report back, and that girl has also entered King Ling's tomb. So I'm just anxious. The old man's expression was still black as he directly took the medicinal pill and poured it into his mouth. He simply bandaged the wound on his arm before he slowly stood up. If a divine artifact could be obtained so easily, it wouldn't have been sealed here for 1,000 years. Elder Xiong sneered as he narrowed his sinister eyes. Yes. It's a divine tool, after all. I've troubled Elder Xiong. Protector Ing knew that it was impossible for him to undo the seal with his own abilities. As a protector, his duty was to protect the people he was supposed to protect. As for the elders, they were the ones who listened to the master behind the scenes, casting spells or controlling certain things. Since they had different responsibilities, Protector Ing did not dare to show any signs of impatience. After we retrieve the divine weapon, I will definitely praise you in front of the Lord for your spirit of risking everything for the Lord. Elder Xiong's expression softened a little. I'm not a person who likes to make meritorious contributions. The fact that the Lord has entrusted such an important task to us means that he trusts us. As long as we cooperate with each other and do our job well for the Lord, it will be fine. Even so, the expression on his face clearly became a little more complacent. Both of them had their own thoughts, so they didn't say anything. Their conversation also entered Yi Qing Luo's ears. Divine weapon? What was sealed here was actually a divine weapon. Furthermore, if it was sealed for 1,000 years, it would at least be a divine weapon from 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, the four great sect had painstakingly sealed it here, so it could be seen that this divine weapon was definitely not an ordinary item. Interested, DMO Xian's arm was still wrapped around her waist as his lips stuck close to her ear. The minute he opened his mouth, his warm breath was like a feather tickling her ear. Yi Qing Luo's petite body trembled slightly as the glint in her eyes turned into embarrassment. Chapter 875. I've already said that the thing inside belongs to no one but you. DMO Xian chuckled lightly, looking at the girl in his arms with satisfaction, unable to resist any bit of temptation. Yi Qing Luo raised her elbow as she pushed him in a bad mood. The last seal is something that even they have no way of unlocking, so whether they can get it or not is still a problem. Why don't we go out now and kill the both of them before you undo the seal? DMO Xian's long and narrow eyes rose slightly as his mood was delighted. Yi Qing Luo recalled the scene of that Elder Xiong directly slicing open his wrist, using the forbidden blood arts to activate the seal. She shuddered and shook her head decisively. I'm more inclined to wait for them to break the seal, then go out and kill them. Her voice paused. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flickered with a cold glint, like a mandala flower emitting a charming yet fatal charm. Dying when you're filled with hope is truly fatal. These people had snatched away her profound heart jade and had repeatedly injured and harmed her. Just because the dark forces dared to make use of Long Yunjian to stab Yin Xiao Yi, causing her to almost die from poison, she would also make the dark forces pay a painful price. You want to break the seal and seize the divine artifact? All right then. I'll destroy their hope the moment they break the seal and when they see that they can complete the so-called Lord's mission and become wild with joy. Let them be annihilated with the despair of having their hopes destroyed in an instant. She had never been a good person. As long as someone touched her bottom line, she would not hesitate to take their life without batting an eyelid. A large palm slowly covered her eyes. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned. Her long lashes lightly swept past his palm. Lil Luo, I've said it before, don't show such an expression in front of me. DMO Xian's gentle voice was like a cool breeze brushing against her eardrums. In this way, I will feel very useless. The temperature of his palm became hotter and hotter. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as the cold smile on her face gradually softened. She leaned her head on Dmo Xian's shoulder, and her voice was soft and sweet. I know, but you know me. Yes, Dmo Xian understood her. It wasn't that she didn't believe in his abilities. It wasn't that she didn't believe that he could protect her and the people she cared about. What she wanted was to rely on her own strength to protect the people she cared about. Dmo Xian ruffled her hair. His long, slender fingers caressed her head with his slightly calloused fingertips. The rich masculine scent made Yiqing Luo's petite body tremble from time to time. She wanted to open her mouth to stop Dmo Xian's harassing and tormenting behavior, but she was too embarrassed to open her mouth. Perhaps Dmo Xian would use even more torturous methods to tease her. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw that Elder Xiong, who had consumed a blood-replenishing pill and rested for a moment, had already stood up. Guardian Ying also stood up with a fawning smile on his face. However, when Elder Xiong walked towards the wall that was already covered in blood, red waves of qi surging out continuously, he pulled out a dagger and drew on his other arm without hesitation. After the blood gushed out, he casually wiped it off. It was as if he wasn't the one who was bleeding. After the old man muttered an incantation, he formed an incantation gesture and then slapped a blood seal onto the wall. Not long later, the white wall was filled with the blood seals which Elder Xiong had formed. Elder Xiong's complexion turned paler and paler as his body started to sway. Chapter 876. Elder Xiong was so distraught that he was not in the mood to reprimand Guardian Ying. Both of them understood. If they could not retrieve the divine weapon, what awaited them would be the destruction of their souls. Even if they had to risk their lives, they had to bring the divine weapon back. However, the forbidden blood curse had been unleashed so many times, but it was still blocked by the final seal. His lord's plan had never gone wrong. Why couldn't he break the seal? Elder Xiong could not figure out. The blood in his arms had exceeded their limit and could not continue to flow. Now, there's another way. Elder Xiong's eyes suddenly became resolute. He slowly straightened his body and clenched his fists. Guardian Ying looked at him with hope in his eyes. Death is better than having one's soul destroyed. Elder Xiong sucked in a deep breath, his aged face showing signs of dejection. Old Eagle, if possible, when you return, please apologize to that old woman of mine on my behalf. Guardian Ying's expression suddenly changed. He also understood the meaning behind Elder Xiong's words. Indeed, using his life in exchange for completing the task. In any case, he had saved his soul and his family. Otherwise, he would have left the Ling King's tomb empty-handed. Not only would he lose his life, but his soul would also be destroyed and his entire family would be buried with him. I will. The anxiety and uneasiness in Guardian Ying's eyes had already faded. He stretched out his hand and gently placed it on Elder Xiong's shoulder. Old Xiong, if you have anything to say, I will help you. Ugh. Before he could finish speaking, Guardian Ying suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. Traces of blood seeped out of his mouth. He looked down and saw a withered hand easily piercing through his chest. A hand was holding his heart. You. Guardian Ying's eyes widened as he stared at Guardian Xiong in disbelief. The tenacity of these people who had been corroded by the mysterious Yin Qi was unimaginable. Even though his heart was held, he did not die immediately. Who told you that using the forbidden blood art requires the blood of the caster? Elder Xiong cackled. His aged face was filled with ruthlessness. Fool! How could this elder be willing to die? If I were to dig out my heart, how would I be able to use my profound heart jade and heart blood to perform the forbidden blood technique? You're so despicable, Protector Ying said with difficulty. He should be annoyed at himself for absorbing too much mysterious Yin Qi. As a result, he could clearly feel Elder Xiong's hand gripping tightly onto his beating heart, digging it out bit by bit. The pain was heart-wrenching. However, he was still conscious. No matter what you say, I'm doing this to complete the Lord's mission. Elder Xiong dug out the heart and slowly pushed Protector Ying's body away. Actually, you should thank me for sparing your soul and allowing you to reincarnate. Protector Ing no longer had the strength to speak. He could only lie quietly on the ground, letting the pain of his torn heart swallow him bit by bit. Then, in this kind of pain, waiting for death, Elder Xiong did not hesitate anymore. After using his mysterious chi to pick out Protector Ying's profound heart jade, he held the heart in his palm. He formed a seal with both hands and performed the forbidden blood technique. At the same time, he clasped the stone wall. The bewitching red energy was like a whirlwind, constantly blowing violently. A scarlet mist filled the entire main hall. Chapter 877. The last seal had been unlocked. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. She had not expected that the forbidden blood art, which exhausted her own blood, was merely an elementary forbidden art. As expected of the dark faction, even when they used their forbidden arts, they were still so cruel. Yiqing Luo did not have the slightest bit of sympathy towards Guardian Eagle, who was still alive. It was just a dog-biting dog. Now, what attracted Yiqing Luo's attention was whether there would be more dangerous things after the seal was unlocked. 10 over-pillars were constantly stacked together in the main hall. Guardian Eagle's body, which was still alive, under the constant collisions, more blood seeped out. He was hanging there, but couldn't swallow it no matter what. Although Elder Xiong had lost a lot of blood, his strength was still there. He nimbly avoided those 10 over-pillars as he grinned sinisterly at the opening of the seal. After the 10 over-pillars were stacked together, the entire main hall shook and swayed incessantly. It seemed as though the surroundings had started to distort. After some time, the pillars stopped moving. The shaking of the space also gradually subsided. Between the 10 over-pillars and the blood print on the wall, gradually, the red light flickered and revealed a circle of red light. That red light formed an entrance which could accommodate one person, sticking closely to the wall, which was covered with blood. Vaguely, a palm-sized outline could be seen in the red light. It was the entrance to the last seal being opened. "Ha! Old Eagle, don't worry. I will send the divine relic to His Highness safely and tell His Highness that you have sacrificed your life for the divine relic." Elder Xiong grinned sinisterly as he took a step forward and headed towards that red light. Yiqing Luo was about to make a move, but her shoulder was pressed down by Mo Xian's huge palm. Immediately, that purple robe had already leapt into the main hall. Like an exiled immortal, elegant like an immortal. Jumping straight to Elder Xiong's back, his palm flipped and casually slapped him toward the side of Guardian Eagle's body, which was still breathing. Immediately, his body was like lightning as he dashed towards the red light. The red light was like a blooming permitha flower, spreading a large amount of blood. Several bolts of red lightning struck, as though it was going to swallow Mo Xian completely. That is... Elder Xiong fell heavily onto the ground and wanted to get up. A mouthful of blood gushed up his head as he fell weakly beside Guardian Eagle. His eyes widened as he looked in disbelief at the purple figure which was moving swiftly in the red lightning. "Ha! Ha! Serves you right, you're still alive." Protector Ing laughed with great difficulty. He, who had lost his heart, could feel his life force continuously disappearing. However, to be able to see Elder Xiong end up like this before he breathed his last, he felt extremely happy in his heart. "What are you laughing at? I will bring the divine relic back. At least our souls will be preserved, and you will still have a chance to reincarnate. But now, our souls will all become food for the Lord." Elder Xiong gritted his teeth and glared at Enforcer Ing. His duty was to cast spells and incantations. He was not good at using profound chi or attacking. Otherwise, the Lord would not have sent Protector Ing to escort him all the way to the Ling King's tomb. If they were to fight head-on, Elder Xiong knew that he would definitely not be a match for that purple-robed man. So what if my soul is destroyed? Guardian Eagle's face was contorted from the pain, but he felt the pleasure of revenge. "I am alone. It doesn't matter if I die. But you who failed the mission, your family. What kind of cruel persecution will they suffer? You. Elder Xiong's chest tightened as blood spurted out of his mouth. On the verge of death, you could still bicker so leisurely. People from the dark forces are really tenacious. Chapter 878. The two of them widened their eyes in astonishment. A slender figure entered their eyes. The young lady was dressed in a black outfit. Her ink-black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. The lady had a devastatingly beautiful face. Her skin was smooth like jade, sparkling and translucent. Especially that pair of long and bewitching eyes were flowing with a glistening luster. This peerlessly beautiful face, the corners of her lips curled into a cruel and bloodthirsty cold smile. That piercingly cold aura caused one's heart to tremble with just a glance. She slowly stood in front of them, her back leaning against the red light. The red cherry blossom embroidered on her arm was like a flame, jumping in joy, like a devil from hell. Her looks were peerlessly beautiful, but like a venomous devil. You. Guardian Ing was so shocked that his pierced heart shrank, as large amounts of fresh blood gushed out from his heart. As expected, you were summoned here. Elder Xiong pointed at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, finally seeing that girl who only appeared in the Lord's mouth. It was fated in the unseen world. Heaven's will, indeed, couldn't be defied. Yi Qing Luo was expressionless as she looked at the both of them indifferently. Using my profound jade heart to open the seal and wishful thinking of obtaining the god relic. You know about it? Elder Xiong shuddered as his throat turned dry. Even if you know, it's useless. This god relic, based on your strength, you have no way to control it. Yi Qing Luo scoffed as her lips curled into a cruel arc as it became thicker. Even if I can't control it, I won't let you get it. The two of them turned pale. They didn't even have the chance to move, not to mention resist. At this moment, Elder Xiong was extremely regretful. Why did he dig out Guardian Ying's heart? If Guardian Ying still had the strength to fight, they would definitely be fine. If we are unable to complete the mission, our souls will scatter and become the food of that Lord, right? Yi Qing Luo touched her chin as she asked in a relaxed tone. The two of them didn't reply. Yi Qing Luo continued on her own. After we leave the Ling King's tomb, I will spread the news of the both of you helping me to open the seal, allowing me to obtain the god relic. I believe, even if you're dead, your lord will find you. You're so ruthless. His lordship was their only weakness. The one who was the most afraid was the Lord. They could never imagine that such cold and heartless words would come from the mouth of such a devastatingly beautiful young girl. At this moment, they finally understood. Why did his lord regard a 15-year-old girl as the only obstacle? Yi Qing Luo slowly stood up. The smile on her face shot out a strong, murderous intent. Ruthless? Not as good as you guys. As she spoke, her slender fingers trembled slightly. A red feather fan slid into his palm. Silver threads shot out of the feather fan and formed a simple cage around Enforcer Ing and Elder Xiong. Soon after, Yi Qing Luo's fingertips caressed the profound phoenix ring and fished out a silver hairpin from the compartment. The silver hairpin swayed a few times at his fingertips, and he casually threw it to Protector Ing. The silver hairpin shook a few times. Protector Ying's face alternated between green and white, and his heart was filled with shock. But after a moment of silence, he didn't notice anything wrong with the silver hairpin. Just as he heaved a sigh of relief, he heard the young lady's sweet voice, but the tone was extremely icy cold. This is me avenging my brothers. You controlled Ajan, causing him to stab Xiao Yi, and almost lost his life. Chapter 879. Not you. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Right. Not me. My mission is to follow Guardian Ing into the main tomb, to open the seal, and retrieve the god relic. It's really not me. Elder Xiong saw that he had a chance to convince Yi Qing Luo and immediately revealed his background. Not Elder Xiong? The ones who had reached the Ling King's tomb first should be Guardian Ing and Elder Xiong. Shangguan Liuli absolutely didn't have the ability to inject profound yin qi. Could it be Ling King's tomb had a fourth dark force's existence? Other than you, who else entered the Ling King's tomb? Who on earth is controlling Ajan? Yiqing Luo quickly walked to the side of the simple array formed by the silver threads as she stared sharply at him. Elder Xiong shuddered as he stammered, You let me go and I'll tell you, your group leader. You want to discuss terms with me? Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as a chilly intent flashed past her eyes. Elder Xiong, don't forget that you have a family. Yes, Elder Xiong had a family, and he valued his own family very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken away Guardian Ying's heart in order to survive. Elder Xiong understood the threat in Yiqing Luo's words. As long as she left the Ling King's tomb, outsiders would say that he was in cahoots with them. The Lord would absolutely not let his soul off, and even his wife and son would die without a burial ground. Your group leader's profound yin qi wasn't injected into his body, but Elder Xiong weighed the pros and cons as he trembled and was about to say it out. Guardian Ying, who was by his side, suddenly cried out miserably, interrupting Elder Xiong's words. Glancing sideways, Elder Xiong's face instantly turned pale like a sheet of paper. On top of that silver hairpin, densely packed worms suddenly crawled out. In an instant, they crawled all over Guardian Ying's body. Especially after these worms smelt the blood gushing out from Guardian Ying's heart, they crazily drilled into the hole on Guardian Ying's chest. The densely packed worms devoured Guardian Ying. The crucial point was, Guardian Ying still had his own consciousness. He could clearly feel thousands of worms gushing into his body, constantly gnawing on his flesh. He opened his mouth wide and howled in pain. Elder Xiong felt his scalp prickling. He kept moving to the side, trying to escape from his place. But the simple array, which Yiqing Luo had set up, had intercepted Elder Xiong. Speak. Ajah's profound yin qi, what's going on? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she silently cursed those bugs for spoiling her plans. At this moment, Elder Xiong had no intention of speaking at all. When he saw Protector Ying being devoured by the huge wave of insects, he immediately went berserk. However, in the blink of an eye, those bugs attacked Elder Xiong again. In an instant, only a pile of clothes was left of the two living people. The thousands upon thousands of bugs were still moving nonstop. One by one, they filled the air and climbed up the spirit formation. She wasn't able to get any information out of Elder Xiong, but Yiqing Luo managed to get a piece of news. There were still people from the dark forces in the Ling King's tomb. That person was hiding in the dark and controlling Long Yunjian. Right now, there was still an unknown corpse king outside, a Long Yunjian who made people feel helpless. She and DMO Xian weren't outside, and she didn't know if her brothers could handle it. She must get the god relic as soon as possible and return to her brother's side with DMO Xian. Yiqing Luo waved the feather fan in her hand, and that silver hairpin, which was being pressed down by the worms, started to move. It shook slightly. Chapter 880. These bugs were the bugs which Yiqing Luo had brought out from Death God Castle. At that time, he gave a silver hairpin to Baiming Liansheng. Who would have thought that Baiming Liansheng would actually tame these insects and turn them into a secret weapon? Before entering the tomb of the Ling King, Baiming Liansheng specially handed the silver hairpin to her and gave her a bottle of ointment that could control insects. It really came in handy. After thousands of bugs had crawled into the silver hairpin, Yiqing Luo hooked her feather fan. He put the silver hairpin back into his palm. Keeping the silver hairpin properly, Yiqing Luo's gaze looked towards the place where there were only 2 sets of clothes left and fell into deep thoughts. Elder Xiong's words couldn't possibly be false. The profound yin energy on Long Yunjian's body should have been tainted after entering the tomb of the Ling King. Before that, she hadn't sensed the slightest trace of profound yin energy from Long Yunjian's body. Moreover, Long Yunjian's attitude was completely normal. In that case, when exactly did he get infected with the mysterious yin qi? Who was the 4th person from the dark organization hiding in the dark? No, that's not right. Elder Xiong seemed to have said something before he died. The profound yin energy in Long Yunjian's body wasn't injected. Instead, but what? Other than the dark forces' forbidden arts, what other methods were there to inject profound yin energy into a profound practitioner's body? Was there a way to expel the mystical in-shi that had not been injected into the body? Countless questions, wave after wave, battered his mind. Suddenly, an urgent voice sounded in her mind. Lass, now is not the time to think about other things. Your little lover is risking his life for you, and you still have the mood to think about him? It was old Song. Yiqing Luo immediately looked towards the direction of sound. The purple-robed man was constantly moving through the lightning bolts. It was as if the slightest bit of carelessness would cause them to be completely devoured by those lightning bolts. After unlocking the last seal, the artifact will also sense an intruder's attack and activate its self-protection energy. Old Man Song explained, "It's precisely because your little lover knows this that she stopped you from going immediately." Protect energy? Self-protection of divine artifacts? Yiqing Luo looked around in astonishment at the lightning, which kept chasing after DMO Xian, and her heart instantly tightened. She did not think too much about it, only thinking that based on DMO Xian's power, anything would be a cinch. However, his opponent was a divine artifact. It was a divine artifact that had been sealed since 1,000 years ago. It was a divine artifact that made the dark forces restless. How could a mortal match his strength? DMO Xian continued to release his biting, cold, profound chi. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. The powerful blast caused his purple robe to flutter like a pair of purple wings. Under the contrast of the purple robe, the nearly transparent, profound energy seemed to have turned into purple and gathered together, constantly intertwining and colliding with the red lightning. Wave after wave of increasingly powerful, profound energy was actually able to contend against the might released by the divine artifact. Yiqing Luo was shocked by the fluctuation of this profound chi. If it wasn't for Old Man Song protecting her heart, she would have been unable to bear the heavy burden, and her internal organs would have been ruptured. Good lad. He's too powerful. He actually wants to use brute force to conquer a divine tool. Old Man Song also saw this scene, and his tone was full of praise. Using brute force to conquer a divine artifact? What do you mean? This lad wants to forcibly conquer the divine artifact and tame it for you. In this way, when you get the divine artifact, you won't suffer the backlash of the divine artifact. Old Man Song clicked his tongue. This lad has deep feelings for you. When Yiqing Luo heard this, her expression immediately turned ashen. Forcibly conquer? Chapter 881. This was a reason why DMO Xian pushed her down before she could get up, and went up first. However, how could it be so easy to conquer a divine artifact? Looking at that purple and red blended together, the uneasiness in Yiqing Luo's heart started to spread wantonly. Her slender fingers curled up one by one as she clenched her fists. As though he had made up his mind, his gaze turned resolute, and he quickly stepped forward. "Lass, what are you doing?" Old Man Song anxiously shouted. "Quickly retreat. With your current strength, you're completely unable to withstand the pressure of a divine artifact. I can't let Xian fall into danger for me." Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all as she walked straight ahead. "Xian is doing this for me. If I were to stand by the side and watch with folded arms, then what do I count as? Putting DMO Xian in danger." And she was enjoying DMO Xian's contribution. She couldn't do it, nor could she accept it calmly. That brat's strength is completely capable of withstanding the pressure of a divine artifact. But you can't. Old Man Song raised his voice, and there was a hint of reprimand in it. He took the risk for you. If you rush over now, wouldn't all his efforts be for naught? No matter what, Old Man Song would absolutely not let Yiqing Luo go over. Going there was no different from courting death. It knew better than anyone how powerful that divine artifact was. It won't lose its meaning. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened as she gazed at DMO Xian with lingering emotions. The divine relic has never been as important as Xian. I'd rather not have it than to see Xian put himself in danger. And, most importantly, she could sense the direction of the divine artifact. It was as if the profound heart jade was calling out to her. It was the same feeling. The artifact was calling out to her. She had a bold guess. The summoning of the divine tool was probably because she had obtained the recognition of the divine tool and was able to resist its pressure. Otherwise, the divine artifact wouldn't have summoned her alone. Even Old Man Tsang didn't sense that she was being summoned by the divine artifact, regardless of whether this guess was true or not. Since she had sensed the call of the artifact, she had to give it a try. She could not let DMO Xian take any more risks. To DMO Xian, this consumed too much profound qi. DMO Xian wanted to protect her, and she wanted to protect DMO Xian too. Yi Qing Luo gripped the glower flame fan tightly and condensed profound qi to protect her heart meridians. Resolutely, she took a step forward and walked towards the direction of DMO Xian. Lil Luo, danger, get out of the way. DMO Xian realized Yi Qing Luo's actions and immediately turned his head to look at her as his heart was in a fluster. His purple robe fluttered in the wind as he flew towards Yi Qing Luo in an attempt to prevent her from stepping into the range of the divine relic suppression. Xian, don't worry about me. Watch your back. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle. She saw that DMO Xian did not care about the red lightning, which was shot out by the divine relic behind him, and just blindly headed towards her direction. Yi Qing Luo didn't want to become his burden. Seeing that the red lightning was about to hit DMO Xian, Yi Qing Luo's heart skipped a beat. The chant overflowed from her mouth, and her feet started moving at the same time. Teleportation, secret technique. But in the blink of an eye, she appeared behind DMO Xian. The silver threads shot out from the glowing flame fan, formed a protective barrier at the fastest speed, blocking in front of him. DMO Xian was slightly startled, thinking of the scene of the young lady disappearing in front of him in a flash. Even he couldn't catch her afterimage of movement. Yi Qing Luo displayed the teleportation secret technique. Little Luo, you're messing around again. His words were full of complaints. However, there was a hint of helplessness and pampering in his tone. Their thoughts were the same. They just wanted to protect each other. Chapter 882. The red lightning struck down with crackling sounds. There were countless electric currents running through it. DMO Xian had already turned around, stretched out his hand to hold Yi Qing Luo's slender waist, raised his palm to condense profound qi, and was about to meet the lightning. A shocking scene happened. The red lightning, after touching the silver silk shield that Yi Qing Luo had formed, it actually flickered slightly and the electric current disappeared directly. The surging red light and airflow in the surroundings also stopped at this moment. Everything returned to peace. It was as if the pressure of the divine relic had never appeared. Yi Qing Luo looked at the silver silk shield in front of her and slowly withdrew the silver silk. She stared at the entrance of the red light, which could accommodate one person in a daze, with a surprised look. What is going on? Could it be her guess was true? The divine relic summoned her and acknowledged her? So, when she came to meet the divine relic withdrew all the protective energy? A finger flicked on her forehead. DMO Xian sighed helplessly. If I knew that the divine relic had acknowledged you, I wouldn't have wasted so much effort to rush up. So tiring. Sure enough, this meant that the divine relic had acknowledged her. Looking at the faint outline in the red light, Yi Qing Luo's brows did not ease because of the divine relic's approval. Why would the divine relic approve of me? There were only 4 of them who entered the sealed space. She was the weakest among the 4 of them. No matter what, the divine relic would not take a fancy to her. If anything, it should be approved by DMO Xian. It's very likely because the divine relic is male. DMO Xian held his chin and answered seriously. Yi Qing Luo. Divine relic was also divided into male and female. Was he kidding her? Hurry up and get the divine relic. DMO Xian pinched her little face. His lips curved into an extremely gentle arc, his tone pampering her. Yi Qing Luo rubbed her face, saw some signs of fatigue in his eyes, and knew that he was like this because of her, so she did not rebuke him for pinching her face. Instead, She obediently walked towards the entrance of the red light. Yiqing Luo hadn't noticed that after she turned around, DMO Xian's smiling lips had slowly faded a little. His inky pupils gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo's back view. There was a profound look in his eyes. It seemed to contain some complicated emotions. After a long time, he stretched out his hand and pressed his finger against the space between his eyebrows. He let out a long sigh that was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Listening carefully, there was no longer any sound. After passing through the red light entrance, Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto the only stone table in the narrow space. The stone table was not big, about the size of a chess table. The surface of the stone table was covered with a thin layer of white, cool air. When Zhang Xian got closer, he could feel an extremely cold aura invading his body. A shelf made of the same material was placed on top of the stone table. Wisps of cold air floated around it. On the stone frame, there was a string of, it looked like an ornament. That's right, accessories. It was a ring carved from jade. It was different from the profound phoenix ring that DMO Xian had given her. This ring was about the width of 2 fingers put together. The pattern on it was extremely complicated and strange. It looked a bit like a cherry blossom pattern. Faintly, there was a red light flowing on the ring. This was a divine relic. It looked like it had a sense of history passed down from ancient times. But this divine relic, did it have any special power? It's actually the Azure Water Ring. Chapter 883, Blue Water Ring? Azure Dew Bracelet? From Old Man Song's tone, he knew that there was definitely a connection between the two. No wonder you were acknowledged by the divine artifact. Old Man Song stroked his shining white beard as his spirit body flashed and circled to Yiqing Luo's side. He leaned over and stared at the ring on her palm. This ring, could it be a set with the Azure Dew Bracelet? Old Man Song nodded with a smile on his face. His tone was unable to conceal his excitement. I forgot to tell you that there's indeed a set of Azure Water accessories. However, the Azure Water Bracelet isn't included. A set of Azure Water accessories? Then why wasn't the Azure Dew Bracelet a part of the set? This old man was born in the Azure Dew Bracelet. Before I became an artifact spirit, the Azure Dew Bracelet already existed. As for the origin of the Azure Dew Bracelet, this old man is not too clear. Old Man Song was in a good mood, and he became more talkative. According to this old man's memories, the previous owner of the Azure Dew Bracelets probably only wanted to forge the Azure Dew Bracelets. In the end, because there were too many materials, he forged another set of ornaments. But Old Man Song paused. The Azure Dew Bracelet is the main magic artifact. The amount of profound energy and spiritual energy poured into it is much greater than that set of ornaments. That was to say, the reason why the Azure Dew Bracelet was able to contain Old Man Song and had the Purgatory Pagoda within it was because the original owner of the Azure Dew Bracelet had once spent a great deal of spiritual energy to refine it. Although the other Azure Water Series accessories could be called divine artifacts, they couldn't compare to the Azure Dew Bracelet. And because she had signed a contract with the Azure Dew Bracelet, her body contained the energy of the Azure Dew Bracelet. Thus, after sensing the existence of the Azure Dew Bracelet, the Azure Dew Bracelet took the initiative to summon her, and even acknowledged her as its new master. Thinking about it this way, it did seem to make sense. Since you've already encountered the first Azure Dew ornament, then, the following 4 kinds of ornaments, you should also gather them. Old Man Song's spirit body circled around Yiqing Luo once before entering the Azure Dew Bracelet. Find the other 4 accessories? Was he going to summon the Dragon God? These were all divine artifacts. A ring had once caused the sect masters of the 4 major sects to mobilize so many people to seal it. The other accessories were obviously not that easy to find. A single divine artifact isn't that powerful. Of course, it's a great help to you now, Old Man Song explained. After gathering all 5 Azure Water accessories, the divine weapon's power will undergo an earth-shattering change. Yiqing Luo gripped the Azure Dew ring tightly as she felt the flowing red light above and sighed lightly. Azure Water Accessories, a set of 5. Let's not talk about the power of the divine tool. Just for the sake of Old Man Song, the other ornaments must be retrieved. That brat is still waiting for you. Go out first. If you're any later, he'll directly rush in. Old Man Song seemed to have sensed the situation outside and laughed in a low voice. DMO Xian would indeed do so, even if the divine artifact acknowledged her. There was no guarantee that nothing would happen. Yi Qing Luo wore the ring on her finger and immediately walked out from the entrance. Just as she stepped out of the mouth of the red light, she crashed into DMO Xian's arms. Obviously, DMO Xian was prepared to enter the red light entrance. Are you all right? DMO Xian's gaze swiftly swept across Yi Qing Luo's body to ascertain that she wasn't injured, and his heart, which was hanging in suspense, finally calmed down. Yi Qing Luo shook the ring on her fingertip. This is a divine artifact. DMO Xian recognized it at a glance. Azure Dew Ring? I didn't expect that the divine artifact sealed here would be the Azure Dew Ring. You also know about this ring? Yi Qing Luo touched the ring. She didn't sense any special power on the ring. Was it really a divine artifact? Idiot, you should first contract with the Azure Dew Ring. DMO Xian helplessly laughed and reached out to hold her little hand. With a sweep of his fingertip, a drop of fresh blood condensed on his fingertip. Chapter 884. Yi Qing Luo didn't feel any pain. There was no trace of a wound on his fingers. Her heart warmed. DMO Xian didn't even want to see the blood and wounds of the contract on her body. He would rather expend his profound qi to extract a drop of her blood. Although it was just a casual action. But Yi Qing Luo could feel that DMO Xian cherished her. Her lips curled upwards as her charming eyes were filled with deep affection, smiling as she gazed at DMO Xian's peerless side profile. No matter from which angle, this man, appeared handsome, profound, and calm. It was only when she felt a burning sensation on her fingertips that she came back to her senses. Subconsciously, he wanted to retract his hand. Her wrist was tightly locked by DMO Xian. Little Luo is so infatuated with this face of mine. DMO Xian's fingertips caressed her palm as he teasingly curled his lips and looked at her sideways. Yi Qing Luo's cheeks flushed red as she stared at him in embarrassment. The man's low and deep laughter could be heard, as if he was extremely happy. Soon after, DMO Xian's large palm covered her head and slowly slid down to the fringe on her forehead, rubbing it. If you want to look at me, wait until we return to the room tonight. I'll let you look at me for as long as you want. But for now, it's better to concentrate your attention on the Azure Dew Ring. Shameless. Yi Qing Luo's face turned even redder as she slapped his palm away in shame and indignation, as a light snort came out from her nose. Only then did he place his gaze on the Azure Water Ring. Within the Azure Dew bracelet, Old Man Song covered his eyes. He held his forehead and sighed, shaking his head. Ayaya, a girl's home is a girl's home. If I hadn't seen this shy girl with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that this girl with a face like a peach blossom and eyes filled with shyness was Luo Ya. If it wasn't for DMO Xian, I'm afraid I would have treated last Luo as a man. After Yi Qing Luo's blood fused into the Azure Aqua Ring, the red lightning on the ring increased its speed. Red light quickly blossomed from the ring, like waves of red ripples. The cherry blossom patterns carved on the ring seemed to move with the wind, and petals swirled in the air. He didn't know if it was an illusion. Yi Qing Luo could actually smell the fragrance of cherry blossoms. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. As the cherry blossoms fluttered in the air, the red electric currents seemed to flow with ancient lines. The scorching heat burned her fingers. After the contract, the power of the ring will be yours to use. DMO Xian looked at Yi Qing Luo's eyes, filled with joy, as his charming eyes sparkled with a sparkling luster, as the corners of his lips curled into an arc. After forming the contract, Yi Qing Luo could distinctly feel a powerful force unceasingly flowing and pouring in her heart, lingering around the nurturing, profound jade heart's surroundings. However, this powerful energy did not fuse with the profound heart jade. However, it continued to linger in the surroundings, as if it was causing a backlash against the profound heart jade. If Yiqing Luo could see the current her, she would definitely be shocked. The current Yiqing Luo was enveloped in a ball of red glow. It made her extremely beautiful face look even more beautiful than before, especially that pair of long and narrow eyes, under the embellishment of the red glow, seemed to emit a charm that could steal one's soul. Let's go and retrieve your profound jade heart. Dmo Xian's palm had been embracing Yiqing Luo's slender waist, while the other hand held her slender wrist. He naturally sensed that something was wrong with Yiqing Luo's heart. The two turned around and left the sealed space. Perhaps Yiqing Luo and the Azure Aqua Ring had already formed a blood contract. 3,000 spaces didn't show any other unusual movements. The two had just walked out of 3,000 spaces when they saw a profound practitioner dressed in a black robe. Even his head was covered tightly, quietly heading towards the place where the giant beast totem had split open. Chapter 885. Dark Forces People. Yiqing Luo recognized this attire at one glance. As expected, there were still people from the Dark Forces in King Ling's tomb. Dmo Xian released Yiqing Luo's slender waist as his purple robe swept, and he had already appeared in front of the Black Robe Man as he stretched out his hand to stop the Black Robe Man's intention to snatch the profound heart jade. The Black Robe Man didn't expect that they would turn back so coincidentally. Dmo Xian dangerously narrowed his long peach blossom eyes as he gazed at the Black Robed Man's hand. Before he could describe it, a strong air wave turned into a turbulent line with imposing manner as it attacked towards the Black Robed Man's hand. The Black Robed Man's reaction was extremely fast. As Dmo Xian neared, he swiftly retracted his hand and retreated a few steps. After stabilizing himself, the Black Robed Man immediately turned around and was about to leave. This Black Robed Man was the only clue to the Dark Forces. He was also the medium to release the profound Yin Qi in Long Yunzhan's body. How would Dmo Xian let the Black Robed Man leave? Without any hesitation, he chased after the Black Robed Man. Since you dare to snatch Lil Luo Er's special profound heart jade, why run? Dmo Xian's rosy lips curled up slightly as his eyes were covered with frost. That Black Robed Man's footsteps became faster and faster. Only, how could the Black Robed Man's speed compare to Dmo Xian? But within a few breaths, the Black Robed Man had already been stopped by Dmo Xian. Dark Forces people? That dog shit Lord asked you to take Lil Luo Er's profound heart jade? Dmo Xian stood in front of the Black Robed Man as his voice was gentle, as though he was having an ordinary chat, calm and indifferent. The man hidden under the black robe seemed to tremble, but he still didn't say a word. Dmo Xian lost his patience as his 5 fingers locked onto the Black Robed Man's neck as his fingertips flicked lightly. The black robe slid down from the Black Robed Man's head. Creak! A crisp cracking sound could be heard. The black robe fell off and revealed a set of ghastly white bones under the black robe. The moment the black robe was ripped off, the white bones that were used to prop up the frame broke. Substitution forbidden technique? Dmo Xian's expression changed slightly as he speedily threw the white bone in his hand out. He raised his eyes towards Yiqing Luo, and as he dashed towards her, he cried out sharply, "Lil Luo be careful." Yiqing Luo stood by the side of the huge beast's mouth, observing their battle situation without blinking. Dmo Xian lifted up his black robe, and she saw the scene of eerie white bones underneath. Old Man Song reminded him in his mind. This was also a type of forbidden technique called the substitution forbidden technique. By consuming a large amount of profound Jade Heart's energy and absorbing a large amount of demonic energy, he could use the simplest of things to create his own substitute. After listening to Old Man Song's explanation, Yiqing Luo immediately withdrew from the huge beast seal, and with a fierce slap of her palm, the huge beast which had split open once again closed up. Her opponent's goal was her profound heart jade, the profound heart jade that had already disappeared for so long. With great difficulty, he finally saw his profound heart jade. How could Yi Qing Luo possibly allow the Dark Forces people to take away her profound heart jade? She needed her profound jade heart. He needed his own profound heart jade. The moment the giant beast closed up, a black shadow appeared behind it. A gloomy and cold aura attacked from behind. Bam, bam, bam. That black-robed man's original body directly struck out several palm winds. Bursts of palm winds landed on the rock wall, which was covered with totems, causing the surroundings to shake endlessly. The ground shook, but this sealed ground didn't have a single piece of gravel falling. That huge beast, which had opened its bloody mouth and stuck out its scarlet-red tongue, didn't suffer any damage at all. However, the young lady who originally thought that she would be smashed into a meat patty under the palm winds. After the dust dispersed, there wasn't a single figure to be seen. The black-robed man reacted, turned his head, and swiftly retreated, sticking close to the huge beast's rock wall. Chapter 886. The glower flame fan waved at her fingertips, and a strong red glow struck towards the black-robed man's face. Things had already exceeded the black-robed man's expectations. You who have lost your profound jade heart still have such an agile reaction. A hoarse ear-piercing voice was heard from under the black robe. It was an old man's voice, and the words he said seemed to be uttered with great difficulty. Following that, the black-robed man's figure turned into an afterimage as he dodged Yi Qing Luo's attack. A blood blade suffused with profound in-chi shot out from under the black-robed man's robe. Its imposing manner was like a swift and violent arrow leaving the bow. Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers gripped the glower flame fan tightly as a surge of profound chi surged from her body towards the feather fan. She took the opportunity to open the feather fan and swept up thousands of huge waves as she met those blood blades with ease. The two forces collided in midair. The black profound in-chi instantly wrapped around Yi Qing Luo's profound chi. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed as the feather fan shot out a few strands of silver silk. The silver light flickered as it densely blossomed. Like a sharp blade, it sliced the mysterious in-chi into several pieces with a crackling sound. Up in midair, the two waves of power instantly dissipated. The two of them stood face to face. The black-robed man also became serious. Yi Qing Luo was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. How many people from the Dark Forces are there in the Ling King's tomb? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked coldly at the black-robed man. Her peripheral vision saw Mo Xian standing beside the huge beast totem with its bloody mouth wide open, looking as though he was watching by the side. She knew that he was prepared to let her handle the matter herself. The black-robed man also noticed that the powerful man had no intention to make a move. He then put his heart at ease as he laughed sinisterly. There aren't many people, but it's enough to make you unable to leave the Ling King's tomb. Do you think you can leave? Yi Qing Luo scoffed disapprovingly as her eyes were filled with coldness. The black-robed man was fearless. Silly lass, spouting nonsense just because you have some tricks up your sleeves. I want to see how you are going to stop me from leaving. The black-robed man's figure charged towards Yi Qing Luo once again. His target wasn't Yi Qing Luo, but the profound jade heart on the huge beast's scarlet tongue. As long as he took away the profound heart jade and left, his mission would be considered complete. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Yi Qing Luo opened her feather fan without any hesitation, not caring that Mo Xian was still standing beside the huge beast as she launched the next wave of attack. His imposing Xian Qi continued to bombard the area. How could the black-robed man still have the chance to approach the profound heart jade? Moreover, the black-robed man absolutely believed it. If he were to touch a single strand of hair on Yi Qing Luo, that powerful man standing under the huge beast's mouth would not hesitate to tear him into pieces. The black-robed man clenched his fists tightly. Without the two of them noticing, he cut his palm with one of his fingers. A drop of blood enveloped by the mysterious in-chi slowly melted into the ground. The ball of mysterious yin-chi that was wrapped around him also dissipated. Yi-Ching Luo set off a strong airwave, blowing the black robe on top of the man's head down. It revealed a pair of extremely sinister and strange eyes. It was like an ice-cold, poisonous snake. The corners of the black-robed man's mouth curled into a strange, cold smile, as though he was ridiculing Yi-Ching Luo's ignorance. Yi-Ching Luo seemed to have realized something as the cold glint in her eyes deepened. The attacks from the glower flame fan in her hands became even more ferocious. The enchanting red aura's pressure rose steadily. That azure dew ring on her fingertip, following the rise of Yi-Ching Luo's imposing manner, also gradually emitted a scorching hot feeling. At her heart, a strong xian qi started to surge. In a split second, numerous silver threads intertwined with that xian qi, densely shooting out in all directions. Chapter 887. The black-robed man's lips twitched in disdain as his peripheral vision kept observing DMO Xian, seeing that he still had no intention to make a move. That smirk of ridicule on his lips grew thicker. Just as Yi-Ching Luo's attack was about to land on the black-robed man, the entire sealed area began to rumble and shake violently. A black figure scurried to the front of the black-robed man. A pair of azure-blue eyes were calm, without any ripples. At the same time, the owner of this pair of azure-blue eyes raised the blue long sword in his hand as he stabbed towards Yi-Ching Luo. It seemed as though he wanted to perish together with Yi-Ching Luo. On seeing Long Yunjan's appearance, Yi-Ching Luo's heart trembled. She thought that the black-robed man wanted to take the opportunity to leave the sealed grounds. She had not expected the black-robed man to summon Long Yunjan over. He wanted to use Long Yunjan's life to exchange for her life. This plan was really well planned. She had not given up on the idea of letting them kill each other. Ha ha ha. Just in time for the most exciting scene. A sharp laughter was heard from the top of the Ling King's main tomb. Following that, Shangwan Liuli leapt down with a smile on her face, which was filled with a complacent smile. Yi-Ching Luo noticed that the injuries on Shangwan Liuli had already recovered. It was probably the effect of the profound yin qi. Shangwan Liuli's eyes, which were painted with gold powder, were filled with frenzied hatred. That delicate face was twisted. Yi-Ching Luo, if you retract this move, you will not be able to avoid your group leader's sword. And if you avoid your group leader's sword, then your group leader will die under your attack. Saying that, Shangwan Liuli started laughing loudly. Her laughter was extremely maniacal and filled with satisfaction. What will you choose, Yi-Ching Luo? Go, Guan, Lu, Li. Yi-Ching Luo gritted her teeth as she stared at that young lady who was laughing maniacally. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. It was Shangwan Liuli again, that annoying scumbag. Time and time again, she made use of Long Yunjan to hurt him. Long Yunjan's profound yin-chi was related to Shangwan Liuli. Facing Yi-Ching Luo's murderous intent, Shangwan Liuli wasn't afraid at all. She laughed savagely. She wanted to see if Yi-Ching Luo would choose to be injured for the sake of the so-called loyalty. People are always selfish. No one would be willing to sacrifice themselves for others. Yi-Ching Luo gritted her teeth as she retracted her gaze. Right now, what she needed to think about was how to ensure her and Long Yunjan's safety. As for Shangwan Liuli, that hopping grasshopper, once he was done with this matter, he would deal with her. It would be a piece of cake. Looking at Long Yunjan's expressionless face, his profound energy was already closing in on him, but he didn't have the slightest intention of opening it. Yi-Ching Luo's face turned slightly pale. It was impossible for her to let the profound energy she had released earlier land on Long Yunjan's body. She naturally understood exactly how much energy she'd expended to sweep up that strand of profound energy earlier. If Long Yunjan really took it, Long Yunjan was either dead or crippled. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes flashed as she secretly gritted her teeth. At this moment, The silver threads of the glower flame fan swiftly retracted and immediately rolled up another strong wave of chi. Forcefully, it caused the profound energy which was released earlier to deviate by an angle. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's footwork extended as she displayed her own set of strange footwork in an attempt to avoid Long Yunzhan's attack. But Yiqing Luo had forgotten about it. Even if Long Yunzhan's consciousness was controlled by the profound Yin Qi, but this body was still Long Yunzhan's body. At the same time, when Yiqing Luo's footwork was displayed, Long Yunzhan's body had already predicted that she would make such a move. Immediately, his long sword tilted. Chapter 888. Little Luo, DMO Xian's peach blossom eyes were deep and gloomy as he was about to make a move to fetch Yiqing Luo. Seeing this, the man in black quickly rushed toward the giant beast. DMO Xian's eyes narrowed as his purple robe fluttered. His cold and piercingly cold voice was intimidating. Under this lord's eyes, how dare you snatch the thing that this lord wants? As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful, profound energy erupted from his surroundings. Wave after wave, they spread throughout the entire sealed area. The black-clothed man, who was rushing toward the giant beast, was forced to spit out a mouthful of blood under the strong pressure. He fell to the ground, unable to move. DMO Xian gave a light harumph as he turned his head to look at Yiqing Luo. Long Yunzhan hugged the young girl, whose shoulder was pierced in the shoulder. Long Yunzhan's hand, which was holding the long sword, was stained with Yiqing Luo's blood as he kept on trembling and crying out. Faintly, one could see Long Yunzhan's trembling body. He was about to step forward, but he stopped. A vortex that seemed to be able to swallow everything surged in the depths of his dark and gloomy eyes. He turned around and returned to the side of the huge beast's bloody mouth, quietly guarding Yiqing Luo's profound jade heart. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale from the pain as she glanced at the wound on her shoulder. As expected of a sword made from the bones of a human and a dragon, just by grazing her shoulder, so much blood gushed out. Her body was in Long Yunzhan's arms. She could clearly feel Long Yunzhan's long body trembling. Ajan! Yiqing Luo endured the intense pain on her shoulder as she called out Long Yunzhan's name softly. Long Yunzhan's body trembled even more. His chest was forcefully propped up by Yiqing Luo, and when she saw his face, Yiqing Luo was stunned. That pair of azure eyes, at this moment, was enduring some kind of intense pain. The black aura in his eyes kept moving. With every movement, Long Yunzhan's brows furrowed a little more. However, he forcefully suppressed this intense pain. It seemed to be fighting intensely against the mysterious Yin Qi. Yiqing Luo understood something. The sword in Long Yunzhan's hand was made from Long Yunzhan's bones. After being stained with her blood, Long Yunzhan naturally sensed her presence. It was her blood that awakened Long Yunzhan's consciousness. Her eyes sparkled as she reached out and gripped Long Yunzhan's clothes, speaking in a gentle voice. Ajan, it's me. Open your eyes and look at me. The cries caused Long Yunzhan to reveal an extremely pained expression. At this moment, the mysterious Yin energy flowing in his eyes grew larger and larger, swirling around him. Long Yunzhan couldn't bear the heavy burden as he howled loudly, as he loosened Yiqing Luo's petite body. Then, he turned around and rushed out of the sealed area, disappearing without a trace. Yiqing Luo stabilized her body and chased after Long Yunzhan for a few steps, but helplessly the wound on her shoulder emitted a tearing pain. She put her hand on her shoulder and gave up on the idea of chasing after him. Her blood still remained on Long Yunzhan's longsword. He would definitely be able to make Long Yunzhan regain his rationality. What a scene of deep affection and righteousness. Shangguan Liuli stared at Yiqing Luo malevolently, her eyes filled with viciousness. It was such a good opportunity, but it didn't develop according to his imagination. They had not expected that Yiqing Luo really chose to accept their group leader's sword and not let him get hurt. This ridiculous sense of loyalty It was simply a joke. Shangguan Liuli's eyes were filled with wanton, profound, energy as her 5 fingers suddenly turned into eagle claws, charging towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo gave a cold laugh as the feather fan in her hands flipped a few times, directly welcoming Shangguan Liuli's attack. Profound qi surged like a rainbow, creating a devilish crack in the air. That black, profound, energy intertwined with Yi Qing Luo's red glow. Bam! Chapter 889. Even though Shangguan Liuli had the mysterious qi to back her up, Shangguan Liuli was just a piece of trash. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Her fingertips touched the scorching ring, and her 5 fingers clenched tightly. A powerful, profound qi that caused one's heart to palpitate burst forth from Yi Qing Luo's body. Shangguan Liuli's expression suddenly changed. Just as he was about to turn around and run, a piercing chill came from behind him. Shangguan Liuli knew that she couldn't escape, so she gave up and racked her brains to think of a way to deal with it. Suddenly, an idea flashed past her mind as she anxiously said, "Yi Qing Luo, you can't kill me. The woman who blocked the sword for you earlier, the poison in her body was not only from the purple poppy grass. There was also the powder specially made by the dark forces. If you kill me, that woman will die too." Shangguan Liuli's words successfully stopped the movements of the people behind her. The glowing flame fan was only a few fingers away from her neck. "What did you say?" Yi Qing Luo's fingers tightened on the feather fan as she questioned him coldly. It was a matter of life and death. No matter how quick-witted Shangguan Liuli was, she knew that it was a matter of life and death. As long as she could use that woman as a threat, Yi Qing Luo would absolutely not dare to kill her. Thinking up to this point, Shangguan Liuli's expression calmed down. "If you don't believe me, you can kill me and go back to find some purple millet grass to see if you can save your companion." Shangguan Liuli raised her neck high, as though waiting for Yi Qing Luo to strike. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists. Her long and narrow eyes were piercingly cold. In the end, he put away the feather fan, regardless of whether Shangguan Liuli's words were true or false. Yi Qing Luo didn't even dare to use Yin Xiao Yi's life to probe. If Yin Xiao Yi was really poisoned by the dark forces, Ghost Doctor, he didn't know if he could make an antidote. Shangguan Liuli heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the danger was resolved, and then a wisp of a cold smile appeared on her face. Letting go of a person who wanted him dead was the worst choice he could make. Unfortunately, Yi Qing Luo let her off, just for that ridiculous sense of brotherhood. Shangguan Liuli was dismissive. Things like loyalty would only become her stumbling block. There was nothing in this world that could be relied on. Only he could use all his means to stand at the peak. What poison did she get? Yi Qing Luo suppressed the anger in her heart and stared at Shangguan Liuli with a murderous look. "If I told you, would I still be able to leave this place alive?" Shangguan Liuli sneered, the black qi slowly covering her body once more. "If I asked you to leave, would you still tell me?" Yi Qing Luo's charming eyes suddenly turned piercingly cold. Her fingertips pinched the glower flame fan as she approached in a flash, unafraid of the profound qi surrounding Shangguan Liuli. With a wave of the feather fan, the dark qi was split open. In the blink of an eye, she had already approached Shangguan Liuli. She reached out and grabbed Shangguan Liuli's collar. "You dare to play such petty tricks in front of me?" Yi Qing Luo's speed was so fast that even the profound qi had not detected her. Shangguan Liuli stared at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, as she obviously felt that Yi Qing Luo's power had increased once again. The divine relic had fallen into Yi Qing Luo's hands. Shangguan Liuli's peripheral vision glanced at the ring on Yi Qing Luo's fingertip as her pupils contracted slightly. Noticing Shangguan Liuli's expression, Yi Qing Luo directly locked her lower jaw as she sneered. "Looks like you've just tasted some sweetness, and you're so obedient to that so-called lord of yours? Thinking of helping that lord to get the divine relic?" Shangguan Liuli's face instantly turned pale as her pupils contracted. Chapter 890. However, Shangwan Liuli's tone was flustered, as well as that unconcealable, flickering glint in her eyes, which had tried her best to make her expression calm. It showed that Shangwan Liuli absolutely knew the Dark Force's lord and knew that the Dark Force's objective for this mission was the God Relic. Shangwan Liuli's evasive words made Yiqing Luo suspicious of Shangwan Liuli's identity. Those people whom she met who made deals with the Dark Forces. Other than Yiqing Qian, no one else was able to control the profound Yin Qi freely. On the contrary, most of them were controlled by the profound Yin Qi, not to mention knowing about the Lord. The last time they met, Yiqing Luo had not detected any profound Yin Qi from Shangwan Liuli, which meant that Shangwan Liuli's deal with the Dark Forces was just a matter of a few days. In just a few days, Shangwan Liuli already knew about the Dark Forces' internal situation, knew about the Lord, knew the objective of this mission. Logically speaking, the Dark Forces belonged to the group of rats. They were the most cautious in everything they did. If it was just to make use of the relationship, how would it be possible for a dumb pig like Shangwan Liuli to know more about the Dark Forces? Unless, what did Shangwan Liuli take to make a deal with the Dark Forces? Or perhaps, just as she was deep in thoughts, Shangwan Liuli seemed to have noticed Yiqing Luo's daze. She immediately struck out with her palm. A strong gush of air came towards her, and the sense of danger made Yiqing Luo subconsciously let go of her hand as she retreated a few steps. Shangwan Liuli immediately flew towards the direction of the main tomb. Trying to escape, Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as the feather fan in her hand moved and a burst of profound qi pressed forward. When it got near to Shangwan Liuli, it transformed into a huge red dragon as it bared its fangs and brandished its claws to block Shangwan Liuli's path. Coincidentally, that black-robed man had already reached the entrance of the main tomb and was about to leave. But because of Shangwan Liuli's nearing, even the black-robed man was blocked. Black-robed man's face turned steely green as he silently scolded Shangwan Liuli for not knowing what's good for her. Shangwan Liuli looked at the huge red dragon in disbelief, although she knew that this was just an illusion formed from profound qi. But when the huge dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws to bite her head, her heart still felt terrified. Just at this moment, all of a sudden, the entire sealed land began to shake. The incomparably sturdy walls covered with giant beast totems began to crack. A powerful fluctuation of profound qi spread out in the sealed area. In an instant, the entire sealed area was filled with smoke and dust, and gravel flew in all directions. DMO Xian seemed to have realized something as his gloomy black eyes flickered faintly as he opened his mouth. Lil Luo, come over. Even with the protection of a divine artifact, this powerful undulation was nothing. Yiqing Luo also felt the pressure. Yiqing Luo didn't try to be brave as she immediately turned around and flew towards DMO Xian. At the same time, the profound qi in the air began to fluctuate like the clouds and rain. Bang, 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 boom, boom, boom. The deafening sound directly exploded at the place where Yiqing Luo was standing earlier. Gravel flew everywhere in an instant. The giant beast totem on the wall trembled and cracked, but still looked very lifelike. Yiqing Luo glanced at it from the corner of her eyes and felt that the appearance of that huge beast was extremely familiar. He felt as if he was about to recall something. Suddenly, he heard Shangwan Liuli's ecstatic voice. My lord. My lord. When Yiqing Luo heard this form of address, her sharp eyes looked towards the direction of the voice. She saw a figure covered in a black robe looming in the midst of the dust. That figure walked directly in front of Shangwan Liuli and stretched out his hand to grab her arm. Chapter 891. The strong wind stirred and the air billowed. The moment that person grabbed Shangwan Liuli and left the sealed ground, the black robe covering that person's head had a small corner blown open. Coincidentally, that person turned his head and looked over. His gaze met with Yiqing Luo's. But in the blink of an eye, that person shifted his gaze, grabbed Shangwan Liuli, and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Yi Qing Luo didn't chase after him. She also knew that it was impossible to catch up, only if she didn't see wrongly that Lord's eyes. It was the ruthlessness of dipped poison, as though he hated her to the core. That pair of eyes looked like a woman's eyes, and there was a vaguely familiar feeling. That was the boss of the dark forces, the person who was addressed as Lord? No. Yi Qing Luo felt that something was strange. Powerful strength, as well as a daunting pressure. Indeed, seemed like an extremely powerful opponent. But Yi Qing Luo felt that. The mastermind of the dark forces who had been hiding in the dark. How could he appear in front of her so easily? Especially, just to save Shangguan Liuli? He didn't even have the intention to take her profound jade heart. Then, why would Shangguan Liuli shout Lord at that person? Was it deliberately shouted for her to hear, to divert her target? Or Shangguan Liuli really felt that person was Lord? After that person left with Shangguan Liuli, the entire sealed ground gradually quietened down. Let's leave too. Yi Qing Luo restrained the deep thoughts in her eyes. She turned around and stretched out her hand to pick up her profound jade heart. Perhaps it was because she was excited to finally find her profound jade heart. Her hand was slightly trembling. When she took it out, her fingertip was cut by that huge beast's realistic teeth. A drop of blood slowly dripped down along the huge beast's carved teeth. Yi Qing Luo didn't pay attention to it, only holding her profound jade heart, and returned to DMO Xian's side. Her eyes filled with joy. That blood slowly merged into the teeth. A ray of dark light, faintly discernible. In a split second, peace returned. DMO Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes were deep and serene, filled with pampering intent. Suddenly, as if he had sensed something, he turned his head to look at the giant beast with its bloody mouth wide open. Moreover, he sensed something strange and immediately retracted his gaze. Rubbing Yi Qing Luo's hair, he said with a faint smile, "Fuse the profound heart jade into your body, then fuse the power of the divine weapon with the profound heart jade. Your profound grade should have an enormous increase." Yi Qing Luo nodded her head hard. She tightly gripped her profound heart jade, and her pink lips hooked into an enchanting smile. Her charming eyes were long and narrow. "Before that, I still have to take care of this abandoned person." As she spoke, her gaze slowly shifted to the black-robed man who was moving at the speed of a tortoise, trying his best to make himself as inconspicuous as possible as he moved towards the exit. The black-robed man's body froze. "Do you want to live?" Yi Qing Luo smiled as she gazed at him. The black-robed man hesitated for a moment and looked at DMO Xian. He seemed to be weighing something. If it was Yi Qing Luo alone, without the profound heart jade, she might still have a chance to deal with it. But that man, the black-robed man, suddenly remembered that the man seemed to have called himself main body. The original body. The black-robed man's expression abruptly changed as he guessed DMO Xian's identity. Immediately, he nodded without hesitation. "I want to live. Answer a few of my questions. If I'm satisfied, I can consider letting you leave." Yi Qing Luo smiled satisfactorily as she threw out a bait. The people from the dark forces, each more selfish than the other. They were all extremely greedy for life and afraid of death. Just look at Elder Xiong and Guardian Ing, and you'd know. Chapter 892. Under DMO Xian's identity, the black-robed man totally didn't notice the murderous intent in Yi Qing Luo's eyes when she said this sentence. Most importantly, in the eyes of the black-robed man, Yi Qing Luo's arrogance was merely because of DMO Xian's backing. And he didn't put Yi Qing Luo in his eyes. That person earlier isn't the so-called Lord, right? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she asked the first question. The black-robed man's face instantly turned pale. That sinister and sneaky face surfaced a trace of fear and fear. He shook his head and made a cross gesture with his mouth. "Can't say." Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as a sliver of danger appeared. The black-robed man's gaze looked towards DMO Xian as he struggled to shake his head, indicating that he really couldn't answer this question. Yiqing Luo was about to open her mouth when Dmo Xian's warm palm covered her shoulder. Yiqing Luo looked back at him. Dmo Xian shook his head and said calmly, "Like this kind of shady forces, each and every one of them are selfish, and it's impossible for them to sincerely surrender. Only benefits will drive them to surrender." In other words, these people from the dark forces, none of them could be trusted by the upper echelons of the dark forces. Let them enter the nirvana realm to complete the mission. Other than the so-called Lord, who had something to blackmail them with, there was no one else. These people were all inflicted with a forbidden spell. Once they mentioned anything about the Lord from the dark forces, they would die miserably. In other words, whether that person was the Lord, Yiqing Luo couldn't get any confirmation from the black-robed man. She also couldn't get any useful information from the black-robed man. Yiqing Luo indifferently straightened her waist. "Since you can't get any answers, then just kill them to save time." Saying that, she held the profound heart jade and turned back to the huge beast to start fusing with it. That black-robed man was trembling in fear as he immediately shook his head and begged for mercy. "I can't answer this question, but I have other information that can exchange my life." "Huh?" Yiqing Luo stopped her footsteps in interest. Turning back, she saw the black-robed man looking at Dmo Xian with a face full of fear. Her smile deepened as she knew the reason why the black-robed man was so obedient was because Dmo Xian was standing beside her. To tell the truth, this feeling of borrowing the tigers might was actually quite good. The black-robed man trembled and said, "The dark forces seem to want to return to the nirvana realm. The people who have come to the nirvana realm have already taken up 1/3 of the dark forces." Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked at Dmo Xian. As expected, Dmo Xian's expression turned grave. It seemed like he did not receive the news that the dark forces had come to the nirvana realm. 1/3 of the dark forces had arrived. As the number one evil palace, the imperial palace didn't receive any news. The dark forces had infiltrated the nirvana realm too stealthily. Or could it be that the imperial palace's investigation level had also been infiltrated by the dark forces? Seeing that the two of them were deep in thought, the black-robed man thought that there was a chance and continued. "There are about 1,000 people who have been infected by the mysterious Inchi. I guess it is possible that they're trying to conquer the nirvana realm and return to it." The black-robed man paused for a moment and hid the way he addressed him. Want to conquer the nirvana realm? Return to the nirvana realm? Did he want to take revenge for being expelled from the nirvana realm? Chapter 893. Yiqing Luo's eyes were deep and serene as she remained silent for some time. Looking at Dmo Xian's grave expression, she slowly shook her head. Her tender red lips curved into a flirtatious smile. Word by word, her pink lips opened and closed. "I want to know everything except for your boss." Yiqing Luo crossed her legs and sat right below the huge beast's open mouth. Dmo Xian stood by the side, his gaze deep and serene as he gazed deeply at her, his expression calm without any ripples. Not far from the two of them was the exit of the sealed land. A corpse with a stunned expression was lying there with its eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with unwillingness as he breathed his last. Right from the start, Yiqing Luo had no intention to let this black-robed man off. She was not a kind person. In her view of the world, there were only 3 kinds of people: her own people, strangers, and enemies. If it wasn't someone from the dark organization, her brother would not encounter such a thing. If Long Yunjian regained consciousness and knew that he had done such a thing, what kind of attitude should he use to face this group of brothers? Moreover, Hershey Ju was also injured because of this. Right now, the brothers were at the bottom of the tomb. There was also a corpse king that was eyeing them covetously from the dark. They didn't know if they had encountered any danger. In order to leave the tomb of the Ling King as soon as possible, Yiqing Luo wanted to speed up the speed of fusing with a profound heart jade. She withdrew all kinds of thoughts and closed her eyes. Following Dmo Xian's guidance, Yiqing Luo held the profound heart jade in her palm and brought it to her chest. A bewitching red light slowly wrapped around the profound heart jade. Bit by bit, it merged into Yi Qing Luo's body. The red light was bewitching and dazzling. No one discovered that in the instant it fused into the body, in the center of the profound jade heart, there was a faintly discernible wisps of black gas flashed. It was fleeting. The first feeling after the profound heart jade fused in her body was that Yi Qing Luo had an obvious reaction. A powerful force filled his limbs and bones. After being baptized by the marrow cleansing pill, his meridians actually felt as if they were being filled with profound chi energy. She could feel the continuous flow of profound energy in her body. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged toward him, toward his heart. The child profound heart jade that was originally being nurtured in the profound heart jade suddenly jumped out of his heart. By the side, DMO Xian stretched out his palm and caught that profound heart jade. Yi Qing Luo's special profound jade heart replaced it and embedded itself deep into the heart. Bang! His chest seemed to be hit by an extremely powerful aura. Yi Qing Luo's body was enveloped by a red glow as it slowly gave off a dazzling brilliance. Like a blooming rose, the flames were enchanting. A terrifying aura surged and exploded. His hair, which was simply tied up, fluttered in the wind. The ground quaked and the mountains shook. The entire tomb began to collapse due to the overwhelming force. Shake and tremble. That was submission to the strong. Lass, seizing the chance to absorb the azure water ring's power, fused with the profound heart jade. Old man Song's tone was unable to conceal his joy. The azure dew bracelet also gradually began to heat up. One could see how excited Old Man Song was. Hearing what was said, Yi Qing Luo began to follow Old Man Song's directions. When she formed a blood contract with the azure dew ring, the power that flowed within her body and was unable to fuse with the profound heart jade, slowly and kindly welcomed it into her own profound heart jade. Perhaps it was because this profound heart jade was hers. That azure dew ring's power circled around Yi Qing Luo's heart once before it began to slowly seep into her body. The surrounding air began to distort, stagnate. Chapter 894. Bam, bam, bam. Strong, profound chi kept colliding against the surroundings. The air was stagnant and heavy. Carrying a majestic pressure, it made one's breathing became extremely difficult. Finally, the entire sealed ground collapsed as it couldn't bear the pressure. However, that shattered huge stone, at the instant it crashed into Yi Qing Luo, it was rebounded. That was an array barrier. The array barrier which DMO Xian had set up. DMO Xian didn't pay any attention to the surrounding situation. The current him, his gaze was fixated on Yi Qing Luo, paying close attention to her. His deep black eyes could only accommodate Yi Qing Luo one person. He allowed the broken stones to collapse and the tomb to be destroyed. A ray of light shot into the tomb. Following that densely packed light, rays shone downwards. Following the destruction of the earth and mountains. Rumble, the tomb completely collapsed. A radius of 100 miles was leveled to flat ground. Vice Group Leader, Qing Luo. Worried voices shouted out in unison. But they saw Yi Qing Luo's eyes shut tightly, apparently in meditation. Xiao Jin immediately made everyone keep quiet. Over 100 people rushed over in unison, but no one opened their mouths to speak. After the tomb collapsed, all the stone walls had already turned into nothingness. If it wasn't for the fact that Baiming Lian City had urgently set up the array barrier at the critical moment, they were afraid. Even if they weren't crushed to death by the huge stones, then they would also be shocked to death by this majestic and powerful energy. 100 of them were all enveloped in Baiming Lian City's array barrier, as they looked at Yi Qing Luo with a complicated and shocked expression. Originally, they thought that to release such a powerful energy and to flatten the entire tomb, other than the Overlord, there was no one else. Of course, there was a possibility that the mastermind behind this had appeared. They were burning with anxiety, worried about Yi Qing Luo. But they had not expected that the one who released such a powerful energy was actually Yiqing Luo. "Zhou, why are there so many people around?" Suddenly, a World Link mercenary's voice was trembling slightly. This sentence made everyone's gaze shift away from Yiqing Luo. When they looked around, everyone's eyes widened in shock. They saw the entire King Ling's tomb was surrounded by at least 2,000 to 3,000 people, a black mass. They were at least 50 meters away from the tomb. The entire tomb was surrounded by 3 layers of guards. Judging from their uniform, there were at least a few hundred people from different forces gathered here. What was going on? Why were there so many people outside the tomb for no apparent reason? Mercenary group? Someone has indeed barged into the tomb of the Ling King. Could it be that the seal on the divine artifact was broken by these kids? Let's see which one of them has a divine artifact. What are you looking at? Just kill him, and the divine artifact will come out. Everyone was talking at once, discussing spiritedly. The group of people in the world group were all stunned when they heard that. What divine artifact? What seal? What exactly was the purpose of the profound practitioners of these powers coming here? Just as the mercenaries were looking at each other in confusion, a strange light flashed across their faces. The earth shook and the mountains shook again. Following that, Yiqing Luo, who was originally sitting cross-legged, suddenly floated up into mid-air. A ball of flame-like light enveloped her whole body. Boom, boom, boom. Within 100 miles of her surroundings, the profound chi instantly exploded, as though it was a sea of fire. The surrounding thousands of cultivators were all injured by this profound chi. Those who reacted quickly opened up a barrier to defend. Those who were slow to react were directly sent flying by the profound chi. Chapter 895. Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. The bewitching red glow was like a sharp blade as it shot out. Dressed in black, the cherry blossoms on her sleeves swayed along with the wind. Like a ball of flame, it was burning. She retracted her gaze as she gazed at her surroundings. Like a high and mighty queen, looking disdainfully at all living beings and the heavens. She had advanced. More accurately, she had broken through. At the 4th stage of the profound realm, after fusing with his incomparably special profound jade heart, the speed at which he absorbed profound energy, as well as the speed at which he cultivated, was 100 times faster than before. Adding on to the blood-packed God Relic, sharing energy with the God Relic, she had directly leaped a profound grade, successfully advanced to Earth Profound 4th grade realm. She could be called as a high-leveled cultivator. Earth Profound grade. In the entire West Continent, there were no more than 500 people who could name this name. Earth Profound grade and above could be called as high-level cultivators. Like Yiqing Luo, who was merely 15 years old, had already become an Earth Profound 4th grade high-level cultivator. Even in the entire Nirvana realm, she was probably the number 1. Advanced? Vice Group Leader Advanced? I can't tell Vice Group Leader's profound grade. Such a powerful strength. Surely she's already in Earth Profound grade. She's absolutely above Earth Profound grade. Heavens! Before today, our Vice Group Leader was only in Mystic Profound grade. That's too abnormal. Vice Group Leader is simply the most abnormal among the abnormal. The youngsters in the World Group were about to kneel down in front of Yiqing Luo. One must know that when Yiqing Luo first joined Devil Class, she was only in Yellow Profound grade. Later on, she leaped to Mystic Profound grade. Now she was immediately promoted to Earth Profound grade. Other people had to spend over 10 years, or even their entire lives, to not be able to cross the Profound grade. Yiqing Luo only spent less than 2 months' time. That was too exciting. Over at Death God Mercenary Group, when they saw Yiqing Luo floating in midair, they couldn't help but go into a daze. At this moment, no one could remain calm. It was too unbelievable. Yi Fengyu's face turned green and white. Nangong Firen's eyes widened in disbelief as he felt a sense of loss. The distance between him and Yiqing Luo had once again, and the surrounding thousands of people were boiling. The powers that had come here naturally included the powers of the four great clans. Yuchi family's patriarch recognized Yi Qing Luo at one glance as he immediately blurted out, Isn't she Three Springs Sect's young matriarch Yi Qing Luo? How could this be? The Yuchi patriarch remembered it very clearly. 1 month ago, he even brought a large group of Yuchi family's guards to the old residence in an attempt to bring Yi Qing Luo away. The Yi Qing Luo at that time, the profound rank couldn't exceed the mystic profound rank 5. It had only been a month. Patriarch Yuchi's complexion instantly turned pale, as though he had seen a monster, as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, as though he was trying to find a way to deny that this imposing young lady in front of him was not the Yi Qing Luo that he knew. The moment Patriarch Yuchi's words left his mouth, the surrounding forces flared up. Who didn't know the name of the young lord of the Three Springs sect? That was the infamous 7th young mistress. But where's the so-called trash? How is he trash? All of them were discussing fervently as thousands of people had different expressions on their faces. The gazes which they shot towards Yi Qing Luo were filled with various emotions. He was the young lord of the Three Springs sect. At the age of 15, she had already stepped into the earth profound realm. Moreover, he was famous for being a wastrel. It was simply too shocking. Everyone rubbed their eyes as they couldn't believe their own eyes. However, no matter how they looked, no matter how they stared, that black-robed lady who was suspended in mid-air with a devastatingly beautiful countenance was the young matriarch of the Three Springs sect, Yi family's trash 7th miss. Chapter 896. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes seemed to bear all the splendor between heaven and earth. The smile on her lips was enchanting, and coupled with the imposing manner she was giving off, her entire personality was exceptionally captivating. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about other people's discussions. Her line of sight was fixed on a figure not far away, hidden in the dark. Her long and narrow eyes squinted dangerously as she smiled and frowned, looking extremely flirtatious. That glass-like eyes were overflowing with brilliant colors, as though the stars in the sky, dazzling. Vice Group Leader. The World Group's mercenaries looked up at Yi Qing Luo, as their eyes were filled with envy. Yi Qing Luo slowly lowered her eyelids as her vision swept past everyone, as her pink lips curled into a faint arc, as though she was consoling them, making them feel at ease. Finally, her gaze was fixed on a certain spot. It was Yin Xiaoyi. Yin Xiaoyi's face was drained of blood as she leaned into Qiao Jin's arms unconsciously. There was an extremely frail-looking Shi Ju by the side, as it raised its huge leopard head, as its bronze bell-sized eyes stared at her in a daze. Several times it wanted to stand up and stand by her side, but it didn't seem to have any energy, as it could only stare at her in a daze. Yi Qing Luo's chest was in pain as her eyes overflowed with a vicious look. When she raised her eyes again, it congealed at a certain spot as her voice was extremely chilly. Shangguan Lu Li, today's enmity. I, Yi Qing Luo, will repay you 100-folds in the future. The two people who were hiding in the shadows saw that their concealment had been discovered and couldn't be bothered to hide anymore. They saw a black-robed man pinching Shangguan Lu Li's arm as he walked out from the shadows. Shangguan Lu Li had no signs of fear. There were so many people around. Why would she be afraid of Yi Qing Luo? So what if she was in Earth Profound Realm? She was still no match for her. Shangguan Lu Li sneered. Another day? Do you still have another day? Simply ridiculous. Even if she detected that she was hiding in the shadows, she didn't kill her directly. What vicious words, that she would take revenge in the future. Did she really think that she had advanced to Earth Profound Realm, so powerful that she could overturn the heavens? Shangguan Lu Li scoffed. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was chilly as her lips curled into an icy arc. Really? That smile was like an azura from hell, extremely terrifying. Shangguan Lu Li shivered for no reason. However, he stubbornly refused to admit defeat. Could it be that you want to kill me in front of everyone? I'm the 5th daughter of the Shangguan clan. How dare you kill me? The Shangwan clan won't let you off. I won't kill you, at least not now. Yi Qing Luo sneered as she said it word by word. You. Shangwan Lioli was stunned. She could tell that Yi Qing Luo really had no intention to kill her now. If Yi Qing Luo wanted to kill her, even if the surrounding people were all from the Shangwan family, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't hesitate at all. Shangwan Lioli frowned, suddenly not understanding what tricks Yi Qing Luo was playing. Doesn't the academy have an inter-class competition? Didn't you issue a challenge to the devil class? How about I add another bet? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a devilish smile. Shangwan Lioli's brows furrowed even more, and she subconsciously looked at the black-robed man beside her. After a silent exchange, Shangwan Lioli then looked at Yi Qing Luo. What? If the devil class wins the championship, I want your profound jade heart, as well as your tendons and meridians. Yi Qing Luo's voice was like frost. Her tone was calm, as though she was having a casual chat. Conversely, I will hand over my profound jade heart, as well as my tendons and meridians. When she said that, not only was Shangwan Lioli stunned, even the surrounding forces were stunned. Wasn't this bet a little too big? Using her profound jade heart and tendons as the bet, that was also betting her entire life. Chapter 897. You. Shangwan Lioli bit her lower lip tightly. Her eyes were covered with gold powder, looking extremely comical. You're crazy. Yi Qing Luo was absolutely crazy. Otherwise, why would she make such a suggestion? Anyone with eyes could tell that devil class would not be able to obtain the final victory in the interclass competition. One must know that the interclass competition was a competition between a class and a team. Even if Yi Qing Luo was in the Earth Profound grade and was ranked top 10 in the Heavenly Academy's top exponent ranking, it was impossible for her to defeat the other classes. Moreover, even if the low, medium, and high class 2 really lost to Yi Qing Luo alone, the Academy would absolutely not let a waste class win the championship. They would definitely send out the students from the class of gods. Yi Qing Luo was a top exponent. Her ability was on par with the students from the class of gods. But there was only one Yi Qing Luo in the devil class. And in the class of gods, every student's profound grade was above Yi Qing Luo. Win the championship? How could that be possible? Shangwan Lioli couldn't understand where Yi Qing Luo got her confidence from. To think that devil class could win the championship, and he even bet his entire life on this interclass competition. In front of thousands of cultivators and various forces, she made this bet, which meant that once this bet was established, the bet must be completed. Otherwise, these forces wouldn't have stood by idly. Why, you don't dare? Yi Qing Luo curled her lips coldly. Her tone was filled with disdain and contempt. Shangwan Lioli's malevolent face flushed red. Why wouldn't I dare? All right, let's bet. As long as devil class wins the championship, I will destroy my own profound jade heart and meridians. Just as she finished her words, Shangwan Lioli covered her mouth fiercely, feeling extremely annoyed. How could she be agitated by Yi Qing Luo? He actually agreed to this ridiculous wager. But the words had already been set out in front of everyone. There was no room for regrets. Moreover, before she could regain her senses, a drop of crystal-clear blood shot out from Yi Qing Luo's fingertip, directly falling onto Shangwan Lioli's forehead. In a split second, it merged into her body. Shangwan Lioli's face turned steely green as she stretched out her hand to wipe her forehead. What did you do to me? What are you doing? Don't worry, it's just a curse. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she sneered coldly. This is to prevent the both of us from reneging on the bet, isn't it? Shangwan Lioli's face turned pale, and her body trembled. She secretly thought that Yi Qingzhen was too ruthless. He was so ruthless to himself, not to mention to others. He swore on his heart's blood. It was a curse cast using the blood of his heart. Once the wager was established, if one of the parties went back on their word, then that party would be forced to carry out the wager according to the wager. For example, the bet between Yi Qing Luo and Shangwan Lioli. in order to destroy the profound heart jade, had already broken all the tendons in her limbs. Then, after the curse was established, Yiqing Luo or Shangguan Liuli, whichever side lost the bet, wasn't willing to destroy their own profound jade heart and meridians. This curse would be forcefully performed. Shangguan Liuli was still remorseful and frightened. The black-robed man beside her tightened his grip on her wrist. Shangguan Liuli's face paled, and she immediately looked at the black-robed man respectfully. Shangguan Liuli's eyes lit up as if they had communicated with each other, revealing a joyful expression. What fear, what vexation and worry. She didn't need these emotions. Shangguan Liuli raised her head as she complacently looked at the young lady who was suspended in mid-air. Her eyes were gloomy and ruthless as she suddenly laughed out loud. That's right, she raised her voice. He had increased the volume of his voice by several times. Chapter 898. God Relic? That one sentence stirred up 10,000 waves. The various powerhouses' original mood of watching a show was instantly swept away. Everyone's vision congealed onto Yiqing Luo. God Relic was on her? Despicable. Shangguan Liuli, what rubbish are you sprouting? How would Qing Luo have any God Relic on her? Don't think that you can escape just because everyone's attention is focused on us. The World Mercenary Group's mercenaries' expressions turned especially ugly. They immediately opened their mouths to defend Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word. She stared coldly at Shangguan Liuli, who had a smug look on her face. In the end, her gaze was fixed on the black-robed man beside her. King Ling's tomb had been blown up and various forces had gathered around. It must be because the dark forces had released the God Relic seal, causing the God Relic's aura to leak out, attracting various forces and a large number of cultivators to get their hands on this God Relic. After all, it was an ancient God Relic from thousands of years ago. There were too many cultivators who wanted to get it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many cultivators gathered around here. Whereas Shangguan Liuli's words should be instructed by that black-robed man. Try to make use of the surrounding forces to stop her from capturing them. It seemed that this so-called his lordship was still somewhat afraid of her. The surrounding forces had obviously pointed the spearhead towards Yiqing Luo. The complacent smile on Shangguan Liuli's face became even more radiant. The God Relic is on Yiqing Luo. I can testify on my identity as Shangguan family's fifth misty. If there's any falsehood in my words, I'm willing to bear all the consequences. The other forces' eyes instantly shone. They came all the way to King Ling's tomb. Wasn't it all for this God Relic? Now the God Relic was in the hands of a young lass. So what if she was an Earth Profound expert? How could one person fight against so many of them? The various forces' men started to stir as they already had the intention to pounce towards Yiqing Luo. The World Group's mercenaries started to gather vigilantly, with DMO, Xian, and Yiqing Luo, who was floating in midair as the center. They formed a tight circle as they stared vigilantly at those surrounding forces. From those forces' cultivators' eyes, the mercenaries could clearly see the gleam in their eyes, as though they were looking at their prey. The mercenaries absolutely believed it. So long as one power made the first move, then the other thousands of profounders would charge over without the slightest hesitation. Shangguan Liuli let out a ferocious laugh as her plan worked. She threw a glance at the Shangguan clan's men. The leader of the Shangguan clan's forces was coincidentally the Shangguan third young master, Shangguan Fangyi. When he saw Shangguan Liuli, his face was filled with astonishment. He could not believe that his big-breasted, brainless sister would actually be so daring. Not afraid of Yiqing Luo's powerful pressure in front of everyone. Who was the person in the black robe beside Shangguan Liuli? The siblings looked at each other. Shangguan Fangyi had a lot of questions he wanted to ask, but he couldn't leave the Shangguan clan's territory. If he were to make a move, he would definitely be the first to make a move. Shangguan Liuli looked towards his direction as she blinked her eyes, as she faintly touched her fingers, following that her vision shot towards Yiqing Luo's direction. She no longer looked at Shangguan Fangyi. Instead, her arm was forcefully pulled by the black-robed man, as a deep and cold hoarse voice was heard from under the black robe. Don't have any ideas. Since we've already confirmed that Yi Qing Luo has left the Ling King's tomb, then let's leave now. After saying that, the two figures in the air only had enough time to see two afterimages, and they instantly disappeared. The other forces looked at each other in dismay. There were a few forces who wanted to chase after the direction which the two figures had left towards, but they were all very clear. Chapter 899. Whoever subdued Yi Qing Luo first would have a greater chance of obtaining the divine relic. No one was willing to miss the chance to get a divine artifact. Moreover, the fifth Miss Shangwan had already brought out the Shangwan family to testify. That also meant that what fifth Miss Shangwan said was absolutely true. The Shangwan family didn't do anything either, did they? The various factions allowed Shangwan Liuli and the black-robed man to leave. Xiao Jin lowered his head and looked at the pale-faced Yin Xiao Yi in his arms as he clenched his teeth tightly and used a mercenary group badge to transmit his voice. Qing Luo, are you really going to let Shangwan Liuli off so easily? Are you not going to take revenge for Xiao? Aren't you going to avenge Shijue? The mercenaries were puzzled. Based on Yi Qing Luo's current ability, so what if she killed Shangwan Liuli in front of so many people? Shangwan Liuli had colluded with the dark forces and injured their people. Death was a matter of course. Why did he have to spend so much effort to increase the bet with Shangwan Liuli? How could he let Shangwan Liuli leave so easily? Xiao Jin hugged Yin Xiaoyi's shoulders tightly. His usually mischievous eyes were currently surging with thick fury, his eyes filled with silence. Looking at Yin Xiaoyi in his arms, Xiao Jin felt a dull pain in his heart. He could not blame Long Yunjian. Everything was because Shangwan Liuli controlled Long Yunjian, which caused Yin Xiaoyi to be injured. Thinking of this, Xiao Jin even had the thought of tearing Shangwan Liuli into pieces. However, Yi Qing Luo had no intention to take revenge. Could it be that Yi Qing Luo didn't want to take revenge and didn't want those who hurt her brothers to pay a painful price? Who said I was going to let Shangwan Liuli off? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes dangerously as her lips curled into a cold arc. Sometimes, the real revenge is not to kill the other party, but to destroy the other party viciously, making the other party unable to live. The last 8 words, Yi Qing Luo enunciated them word by word, as though they were squeezed out from the gaps between her teeth. In order to deal with her, Shangwan Liuli cooperated with the dark forces. Hurt her companions, hurt her brothers. Most importantly, Shangwan Liuli should not joke around with the brotherhood between them. He shouldn't have controlled Long Yunjian and infected him with the profound Yin Qi just to watch a good show. Xiao Jin and the other mercenaries were stunned. When he caught a glimpse of Yi Qing Luo's sinister murderous intent, his heart suddenly lit up. That's right, Yi Qing Luo wasn't some cowardly person. Moreover, she was more protective than anyone else. Shangwan Liuli had crossed her bottom line. How could she let Shangwan Liuli off? Would killing Shangwan Liuli be enough to vent his anger? No. They wanted to see Shangwan Liuli struggling on the edge of life and death, unable to live or die. What did Shangwan Liuli care about the most? It was her status, her reputation, her everything. The reason why she was so arrogant and willful was because of the princess syndrome. Wasn't it because her own talent was extremely high, her mother knew how to fight for favor, and she had Shangwan Fangyi to match? In that case, what would happen to Shangwan Liuli after he removed all of her support bit by bit? He wanted to die in despair, but he couldn't die no matter what. Only endless despair accompanied her for the rest of her life. Xiao Jin and the others finally understood why Yi Qing Luo made that bet with Shangwan Liuli. The so-called revenge. How could it be as simple as killing the other party? Jin Zi, bring the brothers back to the old residence first. Xiaoyi's poison must be detoxified as soon as possible. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as a glint flashed past, appearing unfathomable. Chapter 900. The mercenaries' expressions changed slightly. Once again, they were conquered by Yi Qing Luo. This move was simply too despicable. Not taking any action, just loitering around Shangguan Liuli? Didn't that mean that he wanted Shangguan Liuli to live in fear day after day? Just this unknown fear was enough to crush Shangguan Liuli's inner heart. This indeed made one feel much more carefree than killing Shangguan Liuli. There are at least 3,000 people around, and there are quite a number of cultivators rushing over from afar. If we leave, how would those people let you off? After such a commotion, Xiao Jin's mind cleared up quite a bit. Although he wanted to carry Yin Xiao Yi back to the old residence, to let God Thief take a good look at her. But how could he possibly leave Yi Qing Luo to face these thousands of people? Their motive is the God Relic. If they can't find the God Relic, naturally there's nothing they can do. Yi Qing Luo didn't seem to care about those cultivators, as she replied calmly. Xiao Jin's brows creased tightly. These various powerhouses obviously wouldn't let them off so easily. They would disperse if they couldn't find the God Relic. For their own ambitions, various powerhouses would rather kill the innocent than to miss any clue regarding the God Relic, especially when Yi Qing Luo had advanced under everyone's watchful eyes. There was a possibility that some people might think that Yi Qing Luo had used the God Relic's power to advance. Yi Qing Luo's situation was much more difficult than imagined. Don't worry, Xian is here. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as her voice was transmitted through the metal, appearing extremely ethereal. She shut her eyes as she slowly descended to the ground from midair. Everyone's vision followed Yi Qing Luo's movements. As long as Yi Qing Luo showed any signs of acting blindly without thinking, they would immediately swarm up to kill them. After Yi Qing Luo's legs landed on the ground, her charming eyes looked at Xiao Jin as she spoke seriously. Jinzi, Xiao Yi's poison cannot be dragged on. There's a possibility that she has been poisoned by the Dark Force's special poison powder. If we don't formulate the antidote as soon as possible, Xiao Yi's life will be in danger. Her fingertips caressed gently as she fished out a red brocade bag from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Xiao Jin. After you return to the old residence, try to make a trip to the academy. Go to the second floor's medicine refining room in the library pavilion and pass this to Ghost Doctor. I implore Master Ghost Doctor to save my companion's life. Given the current situation, she would not be able to leave for a while. She couldn't be sure if what Shangguan Liuli had said before she fled was true. The Ghost Doctor could cure the poison of the purple poppy grass. But if he added in the poison powder specially made by the Dark Forces, Yi Qing Luo wasn't sure if Ghost Doctor would be able to concoct the antidote immediately. Unable to get the name of the poison powder from Shangguan Liuli, he could only place his hopes on the Ghost Doctor. Xiao Jin gripped the red brocade pouch tightly, his fingertips faintly glowing with a pale green. Mu Zifei stepped out from behind the mercenaries. He untied an ID token from his waist and also placed it in Xiao Jin's hand. With this command token, you can freely choose medicinal ingredients from all the medicine shops under the Mu family's banner. Xiao Jin still wanted to say something, but in the end he was defeated by Yi Qing Luo's persistence. In the end, both sides took a step back. Xiao Jin and the others brought the 40 mercenaries back to the old mansion to help Yin Xiao Yi detoxify the poison. At the same time, they inquired about the progress of the other mercenary groups on this random mission. In particular, he had to pay close attention to Invincible and the Blood Fiend mercenary group. Another 20 over people went to search for the King Corpse's hiding place. King Ling's tomb was already destroyed, and the King Corpse's array was also destroyed, adding on the fact that he was injured in Dmo Xian's hands. If the current King Corpse wanted to capture him, he didn't need to spend much effort. Chapter 901. After arranging everything, Yi Qing Luo shot a glance at Dmo Xian. A huge nine-tailed fox descended from the sky in an instant. 9 furry tails swept down, covering the sky and covering the earth. The hundreds of forces that had surrounded the area were instantly wiped out by this tail. The sudden attack came without any warning. All the forces reacted quickly and started to avoid Little Nine's tail. But when they saw this, when the pure white nine-tailed fox with powerful energy appeared, All the factions were stunned. Nine-tailed sacred beast. Only one person owned it. That was Overlord. The appearance of the pure, colored nine-tailed fox indicated that the Overlord was nearby. Could it be? The Overlord was interested in this god relic? The leaders of the various forces were feeling a little uneasy at this moment. If the Overlord was interested in the god relic, even if they fought to the death, they would not be able to get it from the Overlord. Whereas for those few powerhouses who were stationed in Three Springs City, their faces were pale as the gazes they shot at Yi Ching Luo were filled with fear. There were rumors that Yi Ching Luo and the Overlord had a close relationship. They had announced to the public that they were master and disciple. But anyone could tell that the relationship between Yi Ching Luo and the Overlord was beyond that of master and disciple. Most of the profound practitioners from the various forces were filled with suspicions and suspicions. While Yi Ching Luo's mercenaries took advantage of the chaos to split up. Other than the nine-tailed fox's attack, all the forces were focused on Yi Ching Luo. Naturally, they sensed Yi Ching Luo's intention. Just at this moment, a young lady's angry voice was heard from behind. The god relic is with her. She just broke through to the profound grade because of the god relic. The pig-like teammate activated the pig-like teammate's skill again. Although this sharp shout was not deafening, it was still enough to make one's ears tremble. The reliable, profound practitioners nearby all heard these words. The god relic was with Yi Ching Luo, and Yi Ching Luo relied on the god relic to break through to the earth profound grade. What on earth was this god relic? It had such a powerful effect. Immediately, all the forces were fired up as their hearts were filled with excitement. Right, the god relic is with her. I saw her take the divine artifact with my own eyes. This matter has nothing to do with our death god mercenary group. I want to leave. I don't want to be in this place. Why are you looking at me? Yi Ching Luo was asking her followers to transfer the divine relic. It's over there. Why aren't you guys chasing after it? Oh, Nangong Lin still wanted to scream, but Nangong Firen, who had reacted, covered her mouth and forcefully pulled her behind him. The god-slaying mercenary group had suffered a heavy loss this time. Nearly 40 people entered the tomb, but in the end, only 5 of them came out alive. Those elite mercenaries were all dead. They walked out of the Ling King's tomb together with the world group. In the eyes of the various forces, they were on the same side. For Nangong Lin to admit that the god relic was with Yi Ching Luo wasn't implicating them, even if she said that it had nothing to do with the Azura group. Would the profound practitioners of those powers believe him? Nangong Firen regretted bringing Nangong Lin along with her today. Chapter 902. The world group's mercenaries' faces sunk. All of them stared fiercely at Nangong Lin. They were feeling vexed. Earlier in King Ling's tomb, why didn't they throw Nangong Lin into those worms? Nangong Lin didn't have any self-awareness at all. She felt extremely aggrieved when her own brother covered her mouth as she struggled to pull Nangong Firen's hand away as she screamed at the top of her lungs. I didn't say anything wrong. The Azura group has already been harmed by them till we're the only ones left alive. I don't want to die. I just want to live on. Nangong Lin's face was filled with tears. After entering the tomb of the Ling King, everything was beyond her imagination. Seeing her brother's companions dying one by one in front of her, to the young lady who had been protected extremely well, it was totally unbearable. These people gathered at this place because of the god relic on her. As long as she hands over the god relic, everything will be fine. Brother, so many people have died. Don't tell me you still want to take away my sister's life for her. For this vixen whom you've just met once? Nangong Lin's gaze was mournful as she spat out sharp words one by one. She was Nangong Firen's most beloved sister. How could she not tell that the way Nangong Firen looked at Yi Ching Luo was exactly the same as the way she looked at Yi Fengru? Nangong Firen seemed as though the deepest secret in his heart had been discovered as his expression turned green and red. Facing Zi Qianqian and Yi Fengru's questioning gaze, his face flushed red as he gritted his teeth and berated angrily. What rubbish are you talking about? Nangong Lin, Looks like I've been too lax in my teachings, allowing you to develop this habit of stirring up trouble. When we return to the Nangong family, I will discipline you properly. However, the various powerhouses didn't have much interest in their conversation. What they were most interested in was the location of the god relic, which Nangong Lin mentioned. Basically, they could confirm that the god relic was in Yi Qing Luo's hands. But what they should consider now was, if they killed Yi Qing Luo and snatched the god relic, would the Overlord vent his anger on them? Or perhaps if they were to make a move, would the Overlord fly into a rage and slaughter all of them for the sake of his beauty? While everyone was still looking around, trying to see if there was anyone who could make the first move, or if there was an opportunity to make a move, the two teams of the World Group had already left successfully under the cover of Nine-Tailed Fox's large furry tail. The surrounding forces instinctively wanted to stop them. At the very least, they had to make sure that they were not carrying any god artifacts on them. However, they were stopped by one of the Nine-Tailed Fox's tails. Those huge white tails were as big as thick trees. It crashed down with a crackling sound, and the ground immediately cracked open, sending rubble flying everywhere. All the forces retreated step by step. Not only did they succumb to the majesty of the holy beast, but they also did not dare to attack the Nine-Tailed Fox. The Nine-Tailed Fox was the symbol of Dizun. Attacking the Nine-Tailed Fox was equivalent to slapping the Overlord in the face. How could they have the guts to do so? Yi Qing Luo, who was protected by Little Nine, looked at this scene with a gloomy and cold gaze, naturally understood why they didn't dare to make a move. This was the majesty of a leader. Once she stood at the peak of the world and was revered by tens of thousands of people, no one would dare to touch her. Even the people around her didn't dare to move. In her heart, a decision started to form slowly. Now that things had come to such a state, there was no need for her to conceal her true ability, no need to act as a pig to eat the tiger. Of course, she wouldn't be so silly to display all her ability. She wanted to display. Chapter 903. It was not only to protect himself, but also to protect the people around him. She looked indifferently in Nangong Firen's direction and said, "You may leave." Nangong Firen opened her mouth to explain that she was not like what Nangong Lin had said. Very quickly he was interrupted by Yi Qing Luo. "I don't care about your matters." As soon as she finished speaking, she indifferently moved her gaze away, as if she couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on them. Nangong Firen felt a stabbing pain in her heart. She felt as if a hand was gripping her throat, making it difficult for her to breathe. She treated them as strangers. Nangong Firen closed her eyes and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." Yi Qing Luo ignored them. She had already given the Azura group the chance to leave, whether they could leave or not depended on their own abilities. It was because of her that the Killing God group entered the bottom of the Ling King's tomb. Of course, Yi Fengru wanted the profound Phoenix Ring as well. But Yi Qing Luo gave them a chance to leave on account of the 30 over mercenaries who had died. Yi Qing Luo's vision swept past the surroundings at those restless powerhouses. There were already a large number of people who wanted to take the chance to secretly chase after Qiao Jin and Baiming Liancheng's two teams. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and stared deeply at the man dressed in a purple robe who was standing among the mercenaries. Dmo Xian retracted his imposing manner and blended into the world mercenary group. Hearing the surrounding people discussing about his relationship with Yi Qing Luo, he didn't reveal any bit of imposing manner. He was quiet, as if he was an outsider. This was also the reason why he, who had such a powerful aura, had not been discovered by the other forces. His obsidian-like, deep eyes stared at her the entire time. Their eyes met. Dmo Xian's brows overflowed with a pampering smile. His rosy red lips curled up slightly, his eyes glistening with a smile. Then he slowly nodded. Unless it was a desperate situation, he would not interfere. This was the agreement between them. It was also the freedom he had given Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's matter. He would let Yi Qing Luo handle it. If he couldn't handle it, then he would do it. For a lady like Yi Qing Luo, she didn't depend on a man to live, nor did she hide behind a man to live. She had her own world. It had its own light. What he wanted to do was to protect Yi Qing Luo properly in the process of her blossoming, accompanying her and personally witnessing her becoming stronger step by step. It was enough. After getting DMO Shin's response, Yi Qing Luo turned around and leaped into the air. The black figure streaked across the sky like a black afterimage, instantly attracting the attention of the big forces. Don't you want to see the divine relic? Yi Qing Luo's enchanting voice faintly revealed a bit of chill. Her pink lips curled up into a devilish smile. She spread her arms and floated in midair, the glowing flame fan in her palm, stirring up a myriad of winds and waves. I'll show you the might of a divine artifact. The red devouring flame fan opened and closed at the tip of his fingers. As he opened and closed it, it was like balls of excited flames were moving about in his palm. From Yi Qing Luo's feet, an extremely valiant energy was emitted. The red profound light was accompanied by a fierce gust of wind. Its momentum was turbulent, as if it would fall into an endless abyss in the next second. The various forces were boiling with excitement. A divine artifact. This is the power of a divine artifact. The divine artifact is indeed on her. Snatch it. Snatch the divine artifact, and you will be able to snatch the world. All of you go. Kill Yi Qing Luo. Snatch the divine artifact. Kill Yi Qing Luo and snatch the divine artifact. Not knowing which force took the lead and kept shouting, wanting to snatch the divine artifact back from Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 904. Yi Qing Luo half squinted her eyes as her gaze shot towards the direction where the first voice came from. It was the direction of a Yuchi family. Patriarch Yuchi's heart went numb from this gaze, and a chill ran down his spine. As compared to the other powerhouses, Yuchi family's patriarch had a deeper understanding of Yi Qing Luo. If he acted rashly to obtain the divine relic, he would only suffer in the hands of Yi Qing Luo. Until now, Yuchi family's patriarch wasn't able to guess clearly, nor was he able to investigate how many powerhouses were behind Yi Qing Luo, supporting her. Furthermore, the Overlord's only sacred beast, nine-tailed fox, was still here, apparently to protect Yi Qing Luo's momentum. It was inappropriate to offend the Overlord and the entire Imperial Palace for the sake of a divine artifact. He might as well take advantage of the chaos to plunder Yi Qing Luo. Not only would he be able to seize the divine weapon, but he would also be able to avenge his son and the Yuchi family's reputation. By then, even if the Overlord really wanted to put the blame on them, who could be 100% sure who had brought Yi Qing Luo away from the chaotic battle of thousands of people? Towards the Yuchi family's dark thoughts, Yi Qing Luo wasn't the least bit interested. She indifferently withdrew her gaze. The red devouring flame fan swept across the azure water ring on her fingertip. Bang! A loud explosion sounded. The red glow on Yi Qing Luo's body shot out boundless energy. The devouring flame fan in his hand was also flipping rapidly at his fingertips, giving off crisp sounds of collision. Heavens! This is a divine artifact. It's the power of a divine artifact. Some cultivators saw Yi Qing Luo's entire body enveloped in red glow, as though she was a nine heavens mystical lady, as they immediately cried out in astonishment. Yi Qing Luo's powerful might was unleashed without any reservations. The red glow was bewitching. The red glow that flowed out of his fingertips was like a dancing flame. It set off her beautiful little face, making it even more captivating. The brilliance of all things in the world could not compare to the brilliance of her. Many low-rank, profound practitioners clutched their chests as their heart meridians were shattered by this powerful pressure and spat out blood. However, not a single person dared to speak. All of them stared at the young lady in midair with reverence. No, more accurately, he was staring at the divine artifact on her body. Was this the power of a divine artifact? A 15-year-old little girl was able to directly advance to the Earth profound realm by relying on a divine artifact, and could be called an expert. He could even release such a powerful pressure if they were the ones who obtained this divine artifact. Even if Dizun came, they would not be afraid. although reason denied this idea. After all, Dizun's power was beyond their imagination. But once this thought was planted in his mind, as his desire and greed grew, this seed would germinate. That gaze that didn't dare to blaspheme gradually turned into greed. Seeing the changes in their expressions and gazes, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold smile. With a move of his palm, the gourd flame fan flipped and created wave after wave of stormy winds. The violent wind whistled, mixed with the bewitching red light. When a shockwave spread out for a radius of 50 kilometers, everywhere it passed, crushed stones flew, and the ground was instantly razed to the ground. In the air, a terrifying and powerful explosive aura surged wave after wave of airwaves. It was filled with an austere coldness. This caused everyone to feel fear and astonishment in their hearts. What? Isn't this the divine artifact that you've been dreaming of? Why are you running? Yiqing Luo's eyes rose slightly, as her tone was filled with thick ridicule. When the various powerhouses heard this ridicule, they regained their senses from the shock. The way they looked at Yiqing Luo was as though they were looking at meat on the chopping board, as their eyes were filled with greed and wolf-like glint. Chapter 905. Immediately, thousands of cultivators, hundreds of powerhouses men, all charged towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo glanced at the surroundings. After confirming that Xiao Jin and Baiming Liancheng had already brought his team and left according to plan, he slowly let out a breath of impure air. As long as they left, with her and Dmo Xin around, there was no need to fear those forces. Yuchi family's patriarch's order was only for Yiqing Luo. After making use of other forces to open up a path of blood, they directly abducted Yiqing Luo. Thus, he had been loitering around the periphery. As for the other powerhouses, not only did they have to target Yiqing Luo as their target, they also had to guard against the other powerhouses, whether they would take the opportunity to make a move on themselves. For a time, the battle situation was chaotic, but it was also sensational. Outside the tomb of the Ling King, all kinds of profound energy fluctuated, strong winds surged, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered and overlapped. Tong Ziqing and the others led the remaining Zhao Bo and the other mercenaries to pick up their weapons and began to fight. From the looks of it, it seemed like just a spit from one person from each faction could drown them to death. But if they were to really fight, not to mention the mercenaries of the World Group didn't have the ability to fight against 100. He only said that their group of forces had no intention of cooperating at all. No one was willing to believe anyone else. Whereas for Yiqing Luo's side, she had the help of the nine-tailed fox. There was no tragic consequence of being drowned as he had imagined. On the contrary, Yiqing Luo's aura was getting more and more arrogant. She had just advanced to the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm, and the profound chi in her body was constantly surging, as if it wanted to let her vent something. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly, and a cold glint of air burst out from her fists. This was a good opportunity for him to test out his new power and see how strong it was. Let's see just how heaven-defying the power of the Azure Water Ring is. She gripped her feather fan tightly as she dangerously narrowed her charming eyes. Her delicate body instantly shifted in midair, bringing along a violent gust of wind as it transformed into a gigantic whirlpool of energy wave that rushed towards all the profound practitioners in the surroundings. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that her every move was filled with boundless heaven and earth's spiritual chi. The profound jade heart that was being nurtured in his heart felt different from the profound jade heart that he had previously used. It was filled with a sense of satisfaction. His strength was sufficient, and his profound heart jade's compatibility was sufficient. It made the adventurer's blood in Yiqing Luo's body boil continuously. He wanted to fight to the end, to the death. Boom! Powerful energy swept out in all directions. Yiqing Luo started with the Shangwan family, not giving Shangwan Fong any face at all. The horrifying gale immediately scattered the Shangwan family small team. Some profound practitioners didn't even have the time to shout out before they were blown away by the strong wind, and their entire bodies were flipped over. At this moment, the group of profounders from the Shangwan clan would never be able to forget this scene. The woman who looked like the goddess of the nine heavens had a bloodthirsty and cruel sneer on her face. The red feather fan in his hand was like a dancing flame at his fingertips. Wherever it went, no one survived. In but an instant, nearly 200 profound practitioners of the Shangwan clan had become corpses that lay on the ground. Among the corpses, the black-clothed girl was smiling faintly, but her charming eyes were flowing with a cold light that seemed to come from hell. The other forces wanted to rush up together to subdue Yi Qing Luo. They all stopped in their tracks. Too terrifying. Merely Yi Qing Luo, a 15-year-old young lady, and a young lady who had just broken through to the Earth Profound stage, actually relied on her own strength. In less than half an incense's time, she had massacred nearly 200 profound practitioners from the Shangwan clan. Chapter 906. The only one who survived was Shangwan Fong Yi. The cultivators from Shangwan family's forces had died to protect Shangwan Fong Yi. Only Shangwan Fong Yi was left. His handsome face was stained with blood. There was his own blood, as well as the blood of the guards who had died for him. He gripped his long sword tightly as he stared at Yi Qing Luo in shock. It was unimaginable. 2 months ago, the devil-class trash, who was only at the yellow profound 9th level, had now easily massacred the people he had brought. Was this really the power of a god relic? Could a god relic really make a waste so powerful? Third young master Shangwan. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she smiled charmingly. Long time no see. I didn't expect to meet you here. Shangwan Fong Yi gripped his long sword tightly as his face turned pale as he stared at her vigilantly. What do you want? Kill a chicken. Yi Qing Luo smiled even more happily as her eyes curved, narrow and devilish. Then his tone deepened, cold and strange, as if he was the Azura that demanded their lives. Word by word, he said, to warn the monkeys. Kill a chicken to warn the monkeys? Was she trying to frighten the other forces out? Shangwan Fong Yi's heart was filled with fear as he immediately turned his head to look at the surroundings. There were many clans in the alliance with the Shangwan family, but at this moment, none of the forces stood out. Shangwan Fong Yi was isolated and helpless. At this juncture, the other forces could tell that Yi Qing Luo had a personal feud with the Shangwan family. They couldn't wait to protect themselves. How could they possibly get involved in this mess? Their target was the god relic on Yi Qing Luo. They didn't want to lose the chance to get the god relic because of the Shangwan family. Yi Qing Luo, even if you kill me, you will not be able to leave this place. Shangwan Fong Yi trembled as he watched Yi Qing Luo walking towards him. He was so afraid that he almost fell to the ground. I won't kill you. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up coldly as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Shangwan Fong Yi's face darkened. He didn't understand what she meant. Yi Qing Luo leaned close to him and lowered her voice, cold and cruel. Shangwan family must pay the price for everything that Shangwan Liuli has done now. The game has just begun. You still have a lot of time to enjoy the fun of the game. That cold voice drifted in his ears like a ghost. Shangwan Fong Yi was stunned. Just as Yi Qing Luo straightened her waist and distanced herself from him, her legs turned weak and she lost her balance as she fell onto the ground. The gravel on the ground stabbed into her buttocks. The sharp pain brought Shangwan Fong Yi back to his senses. The words that Yi Qing Luo said earlier surfaced in his mind. Although she didn't understand what Shangwan Liuli had done to make Yi Qing Luo so angry. But he could be sure. What Yi Qing Luo said earlier wasn't a joke. Everything now was just the beginning. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a slender figure slowly walking forward with her back facing him. His gaze finally stopped on her fingers. Before Shangwan Liuli left, she pointed in the direction of her finger. Was she telling him the location of the god relic? Shangwan Fong Yi's eyes flashed. If he could snatch the god relic and obtain its power, the person who became everyone's focal point now was him. It was absolutely not Yi Qing Luo's turn to be arrogant here. Thinking of this, Shangwan Fangyi restrained the cold look in his eyes and suddenly pounced towards Yi Qing Luo's back. This pounce was filled with Shangwan Fangyi's unafraid of death. His entire person brought along a burst of raging energy as he swiftly entangled Yi Qing Luo. When he got close to Yi Qing Luo, his hand swiftly stretched out towards her wrist. Chapter 907. This ring is a divine artifact? Shangwan Fangyi's eyes shone brightly, and without thinking, he directly stretched out his hand in an attempt to forcefully remove Yi Qing Luo's ring. Just as Shangwan Fangyi's hand was about to touch Yi Qing Luo's ring, suddenly, a huge wave of qi surged up and fiercely crashed into Shangwan Fangyi's chest. Puffed. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The divine artifact is that ring. Brothers, let's go. Snatch the divine artifact. All the surrounding forces, because of Shangwan Fangyi's actions, naturally noticed the azure aqua ring, which was emitting a red glow on Yi Qing Luo's fingertip. Once he confirmed what a divine artifact was, those spectators who were watching the show immediately flocked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as she gave a cold laugh. Her footsteps immediately expanded as her figure swiftly retreated backwards. Immediately after, he bypassed a group of forces that were surrounding him. He didn't forget to stir his vast, profound energy with a feather fan in his hand to deal a fatal blow to those profound practitioners. Her speed was extremely fast, so fast that not a single one of the thousands of profound practitioners could catch a glimpse of her. On the other side, Nangong Firen took advantage of the chaos and left with Nangong Lin and the others. Part of the reason why Yi Qing Luo took the initiative to display the power of the God Relic was to create an opportunity for them to leave. Nangong Firen blushed at the thought of this. As the leader of the third-ranked mercenary group, the Gold Mercenary Group, but in the end, he ended up running away in defeat. She even had to let a woman from the Bronze Mercenary Group, create an opportunity for her to escape. However, their departure still attracted the attention of other small forces. All of them came out from Ling Ling King's tomb. Although Yi Qing Luo had already displayed the majesty of the God Relic, proving that the God Relic was with her. However, there were many good things in a place like the tomb of the Ling King, especially for a gold medal mercenary group like this to enter the tomb of the Ling King. They must have something good on them. Since these small forces could not participate in the fight for the divine weapon, they naturally turned their attention to Nangong Firen and the others. Nangong Firen pulled Nangong Lin behind him and fought back with Yi Fengru and the others. The four of them had already expended a lot of energy in the tomb of the Ling King. At this moment, it was slightly strenuous for the four of them to deal with these 100 or 200 low-level profounders. Furthermore, even though Nangong Lin was talented, she had never experienced a real fight before. She panicked at this moment. While the other four were unable to split their attention to protect her, Nangong Lin was being chased by a profound practitioner from a small force. Nangong Lin turned around and ran away in fear. It just so happened that he saw the young lady who was ceaselessly executing her movement technique and flicking the feather fan in her hand, causing wave after wave of profound energy to surge. Nangong Lin seemed as though she had seen a life-saving straw as she directly pounced forward. Yi Qing Luo, save me. The profound qi in Yi Qing Luo's body became more and more proficient in releasing it. She quickly circulated the profound qi in her body and fused it with the devouring flame fan. The qi waves stirred up by his fingertips became increasingly unpredictable. That imposing aura was like a rainbow. The surging and majestic, profound energy spread out wave after wave. Yi Qing Luo's half-squinted eyes flashed a faint cold glint. The cruel smile on his face became more and more obvious. She wanted to release more power. She wanted to raise the entire area outside the Ling King's tomb to the ground. The surging, profound qi in her chest pounded against her chest, as though it was about to burst out. Suddenly, a person bumped into her. The profound qi, which was accumulated and ready to be released, instantly dissipated after this knock. Chapter 908. Nangonglin's body was flung away and was stabbed in the shoulder by the cultivator from the small-sized powerhouse. She cried out miserably as she fell heavily onto the ground. Yi Qing Luo, why are you so cold-blooded? At least we. Nangonglin cried out in pain as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Just this one look made the anger in Nangonglin's heart be replaced by fear and terror. What kind of pair of eyes was that? It was as cold as a venomous snake, without any warmth. Just one look, and Nangonglin felt as though she was in an ice house. Linner, Nangongfiren rushed over and killed that cultivator who wanted to charge up with one slash. He held Nangonglin up with one hand as he looked at the wound on her shoulder with a complicated gaze. Nangonglin saw that she had someone to rely on as she buried her head into Nangongfiren's arms. But she didn't dare to whimper and complain about Yi Qing Luo's evil deeds like before. They had already settled those small-sized powerhouses, and Yi Fengru, Zi Qianqian, and the rest had also rushed over. When they saw the wound on Nangonglin's shoulder, they frowned. You could have saved her. Nangongfiren gazed deeply at Yi Qing Luo, and for some reason, he had a strange feeling. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she snorted with a faint smile. I have no obligation to save her. Repaying evil with good was obviously not her style. Nangonglin's life or death had nothing to do with her. Moreover, if it wasn't for Nangonglin's appearance, she would have released her profound qi and leveled this steep cliff to the ground. Nangongfiren had no words to refute. Indeed, Yi Qing Luo had no obligation to save Nangonglin. Moreover, Nangonglin had gone against Yi Qing Luo time and time again. From Yi Qing Luo's standpoint, she could indeed choose not to save her. But Nangongfiren felt that it shouldn't be like this, even if today was the first time he got to know Yi Qing Luo. Nangongfiren felt that Yi Qing Luo wasn't a narrow-minded person and would absolutely not abandon someone's life just because of a few words of slander and insults. Yi Qing Luo respected every life. This was what Nangongfiren felt during the few hours they spent together in the tomb of King Ling. As though sensing Nangongfiren's puzzlement, Yi Qing Luo smiled as her long and narrow eyes outlined a cold arc. I've never thought that I'm a kind person. My conscience is only limited to the companions that I've acknowledged. Pausing for a moment, she shot a cold glare at Nangonglin. Don't think that I owe your Killing God team anything. Today, in the tomb of the Ling King, the person who caused your Killing God team to be annihilated was not me. It was Nangonglin. The worms were attracted by Nangonglin. It was Nangonglin who had awakened the 5 corpses. If it wasn't for Nangonglin's willfulness, the Azura group wouldn't have lost so many people. Yi Qing Luo dropped this sentence and shifted her gaze away without any warmth, not wanting to be entangled with them any further. Nangongfiren held the shivering Nangonglin in her arms and frowned. After a long while, she closed her eyes and said, "Let's go." When she passed by the man who was standing afar, gazing at Yi Qing Luo with a gentle gaze, Nangongfiren suddenly stopped in her tracks. Pay attention. Doesn't seem right. DMO Xian's peach blossom eyes glistened as he lifted his eyelids and casually shot a glance at him. Following that, a deep voice leisurely entered her ears. This lord's woman, this lord knows it better than you. Nangongfiren was stunned as he lowered his eyelids and muttered, I've said too much. After saying that, he carried Nangonglin and left the Ling King's tomb with the other 3 without looking back. Chapter 909. DMO Xian retracted his vision as his gaze continued to congeal on Yi Qing Luo. His dense, long eyelashes trembled slightly as his deep eyes flickered with complicated emotions. His handsome eyebrows gradually furrowed. DMO Xian had sensed Yi Qing Luo's abnormality from the moment she released the Azure Du Ring's power. But this abnormality seemed to be extremely normal. Yi Qing Luo wasn't a lady who could stay quietly. Was it because after a long period of time, her ability had increased and the sealed battle spirit in her body was slowly awakening? The adventurer's blood was starting to boil? All these possibilities were possible. From the current looks of it, Yiqing Luo's performance was still considered normal. Only after the battle ended would he be able to check on her body properly before he could be assured. Boom! An earth-shattering loud sound was heard. Outside the Ling King's tomb, an intense gale was stirred. The horizon was getting nearer and nearer as circles of pitch-black shadows attacked. Gradually, the sound of footsteps that shook the hearts of people could be clearly heard. Dong, dong, dong. As the footsteps became more and more ear-piercing, the ground started to shake. When the various powerhouses heard this sound, all of their expressions changed drastically. Not good. The beast tide is here. Could they be attracted by the god relics? Energy? From this sound, there are at least 100 over magical beasts. The beast tide has erupted. Beast tide, two words which made one tremble with fear. Numerous cultivators would rather kill a few more people than to meet with a beast tide, especially such a ferocious beast tide. Those powerhouses who were fighting for the god relic also stopped their attacks. All of them gazed far into the distance. But a moment later, they saw a huge black mass of magical beasts charging over. Huge batches of magical beasts charged forward. The huge magical beasts ran on the ground, causing the entire ground to shake. It's really a beast tide. These magical beasts' target seems to be the god relic. One of the powerhouses saw the huge mass of magical beasts, and after they surged over, they surrounded the Ling King's tomb, which had been leveled to the ground. There were a few tiger beasts which were at least the size of 2 tigers as they circled around the Ling King's tomb, sniffing around. Obviously, he'd come for the divine artifact in the tomb of the Ling King. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she expressionlessly gazed at this huge wave of magical beasts, but a sliver of excitement flashed past her eyes. It was the excitement of catching prey. Beast tide? Mo Hanshang's brows creased as his delicate brows were suffused with an inexplicable melancholy. Vice group leader, don't you feel that? This batch of beast tide is a little too strange? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and nodded indifferently. It's indeed very strange. No matter how high a magical beast cultivation level was, it was impossible for its intelligence to reach the level where it could plan these things. Unless there was someone behind the magical beast. Someone was controlling the magical beasts and ordering them around. That person was also after the divine artifact. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as her sharp gaze swept past those magical beasts. The person behind this must be nearby. There was a large number of magical beasts, about 300 of them, and they were all mid-level and above. There were also a dozen low-level magical beasts mixed in. According to their strength, they were entirely capable of being considered as a small team of 1,000 profounders. These magical beasts raised their heads high and roared incessantly. Yiqing Luo's vision looked towards Little Nine, who was sitting arrogantly by the side. Little Nine understood her meaning as its black whirlpool eyes glanced at the surrounding magical beasts with majestic aura. A sharp cry was emitted from its sharp mouth.